Koch. A Yiddish Koch. Yiddish Koch. Guess the salad. Okay, we did together in our church. 20 years ago, no? How many years ago? Distilled culture. Triple distilled. Rather than here, the kids are killed. The boys were killed. Unbelievable, no? They got a cooler, that's it. They got a Yiddish cooler, that's it.
Sit down.
Triple distilled.
Okay, Rabbi. Wait a minute.
Listen.
Rabbi Horowitz. Rabbi Horowitz. Yes. We ask you to be the Baal Menagim. I gave way to well, anything again, you have a preference? Let's start with some Malacha and the focus on the Rebbe's Nagum. Which some Malacha? Long one. That means the long.
Yeah.
Sanu verati savanu verai hamtanu vikalasenu kidashpanu vemitzvosecha vekeiramtanu makeinu lavedosecha shima adoyakodai kaleinu korosai yayatov vipatonu To'oi sanu verati savanu Nerei mantanu Mikol ha-shenos V'kinashtanu V'mitzvosecha V'keiramtanu Makeinu la'avodosecha Aleinu korasai Atonu mikol ha'olamim, Oham koizonu v'rati savanu, Oham koizonu v'rati savanu, V'roim amtanu, Hashem, Kidashanu v'mitzvosecha, V'roim amtanu, Mikol ha'olamim, Chaim, everybody. Chaim. I'd like to make just first of all, a couple of introductions, a couple of akdomas, prefaces. First of all, Aleph Yishkolayim Aloy Simchosi. We heard some very sad news today, but I don't want not to mention that give a bracha, first of all, for the mishpachos of the Kedoshim, and the mishpacha means all of us, really, extended family of the Kedoshim, and as the Rambam says, that he said there's no higher Olam Haba than that which goes to somebody who, Rahman al-Islam, fell al Kiddush Hashem, just because they're Jewish. And at the same time, it's a very big pain, because ultimately, the real Kavanah is not Bashamayim, but to do Ma'asim Mitzvahs Olam Haba, which we are given at Koinen. At the same time, we have to mention it, that Hashem should give a nechama to the parents and to Klal Yisrael. Hashem Yin Koin Domam, we should see the Goloi, the Nikmas Domam HaShafuch, and on all the Eden and the Hizgawas of Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Kariv Mamish. Amen. Amen. Another introduction, he sang Ligunim of the Rebbe. I'll tell you something which we heard. I was observed to be there personally. On the 150th yard side of the Alter Rebbe, the Alatanya, and this was 51 years ago. And the Rebbe said at the Chabrenyan they should sing Nigunim of the Alter Rebbe. And the Rebbe said in a very powerful way that when you sing a niggun of a Baal HaHilula, that is niggun, by singing it the right way and with a hisoidus, it's as if you are extending to the tzaddik and you're giving that person, that tzaddik, the nosi, a pidgin, and asking for cholam etzarech, for relationships, for health, for Parnasa, it benefits all of these areas of a person's life. So we'll be singing in Yitzhak Shem Digunim, interspersed. I have a tendency, I talk a lot. Since I'm born, by the way, that's a teva. In Yitzhak Shem, I hope to say, Divrei Torah, words from the Rebbe, to tell you a little bit about some very, very interesting and exciting experiences that one experienced over the years. But we'll be singing Nigunim, Mizman Mizman. The third introduction is that I'm happy to see here a lot of, I see everyone here, I feel like his mamish, our brother, but there's some literally blood relatives here also. See, we have a nephew here, and in the Edras Noshim, have a couple of blood relatives, very choshev and mechutanim. The last time I was learning to be in the shul was Shashever Brachas of our daughter, who's married to Rabbi Greenwald's nephew. And by the way, as you know, they're going on Fulichis in Mitzvah Shem this summer. Did you find it now? What? They went already. I missed them. I should have called them up before they left. When they leave? Today? Anyway, so they're just going, and he's starting to work. He started to work already before he went. They go to Pittsburgh. I met someone outside the Rebbe's room this morning, and who's a teacher there in that system as well. And he said that if he had to prove himself as strongly as Rebbe did, he wouldn't have a job. He said because he's extremely geschikt. Anyhow, so Rabbi Morozov, all the people here, the blood relatives, the general people. I once had a yechidus with the Rebbe. I will share this with you. And any time I'm telling you, I'll tell you several yechidusim. Was reicha to be inside that room with the Rebbe close to 30 times over the years. And some of the extremely fascinating experiences. But I want to tell you one of them which is relevant to this introduction, and that is that the Rebbe, I don't remember exactly which yechidus it was, but I remember that the Rebbe gave a bracha at the end. Normally when it's yechidus, it was a moment you prepared for. You prepared for weeks and months. Writing the zettel alone, just writing what you had to say. You didn't talk to the Rebbe. You would write a zettel, and that zettel, that note, that letter, was supposed to contain whatever is necessary, but in as few possible words as possible, so not to take the Rebbe's time. And you have to focus in advance. People would write it out dozens of times sometimes until they got it just right, in the right lashon. And I should tell you that this also, just to digress a second, this was also a custom in the generations of Chabad. Because in Tafshin Nun Aleph, in 1991, in the summer, there was a Kinus HaShluchim of Europe. There was a gathering of Shluchim from all the countries in Europe, 200 of us, who went to Russia, to the Soviet Union. It was weeks before we gave a bracha for the failure of the Soviet pressure on the Jewish people. And about a week later, or certainly within 10 days, the Soviet Union collapsed. This was in Lubavitch, outside the oil, before we went into the oil, before we went into the Kavadim. There was 200 shluchim standing there with his Orjus Hatzuma. Somebody's got a film of this. 1/2 hour, sang Nigunim of all the Rabbeim, sang the Rebbe's Nigunim, and spoke about the fact that this place tried to destroy Yiddishkeit, and we've come back here after 70 years to say it failed. And a week later it collapsed. And while we were there, we were in Moscow, in Alma-Ata, which is in the capital of Kazakhstan. That's where the Rebbe's father Rabbi Yitzchak passed away. And we went to his siyum, to his keva, and Lubavitch, the village, the shtetl of Lubavitch, tiny little village, Avariyam Azeh, didn't have running water even. People were still coming out. The main activity of the day was walking the cows home in the evening, the whole little village. And so it's pretty much like it was. And there was a lady there who was 90 years old. And she remembered the Rebbe Rashab. She remembered the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. That means the father of the Rayatz, the father of the Rebbe's father-in-law. And we said, what do you remember about life? He said, I remember two things about the Chassidim. Number one, there was a crowd, it was a Ireland, there was a community here, but, it was not especially gigantic. It was, something, there was electrifying atmosphere in the town all the time. But twice a year, the Chassidim would come from all over Russia with thousands and thousands of orchim in this tiny little village. I guess they stayed at these houses. They must have rented space or something. And the second thing she remembered is that when people went in to talk to the Rebbe, they didn't talk. They would sit down in the house beforehand and they would write it again and again. They would hand in something in writing. That's what she remembered. She also remembered that non-Jews didn't get a chance to go in. Obviously, her father was a farmer, and he wanted advice. Everyone in the town knew that the Rebbe was a very holy person. Even the Lahavdil, the non-Jews knew that. So in the summer, the Rebbe Rashab, Rebbe Shalom there, would sit with the window open in the back of the house or something, and this farmer would go around the back of the house to the window. He didn't go through the door, and he called to, hey Rebbe, should I sell the cow? Rebbe, should I buy the field? And the Rebbe Rashab would come, yes, sell. No, don't buy it. Whatever it was, and she said her father became very rich by following this advice. So the woman that told us 1991. So you went into Yechidus. It was a very formal moment, and you handed in a tzedek. And when I was a bacher, it was even more formal. Later, when once one was married and there were cloud, and these family things, it's different. But it was normally a formal moment, and the Rebbe would scroll or settle down, and sometimes, as a bacher, all I saw was the Rebbe's hat. You had eye contact when he went in, eye contact at the end of the bracha at the end. You walk out backwards, and then you see the Rebbe's face. But during the meeting, looking at the table, and we're speaking, and the Yechidus, how long was it? A very long Yechidus would be 3 minutes. Because it was distilled time. You prepared. And the Rebbe said a word. I would go into Yechidus when I was learning in Montreal for 4 years. Talking Yudches, Chaf, and Chafalov. Those 4 years, I went in Yud Shvat time. Because it's a month before my birthday, 5 weeks before my birthday. And Rabbi Khan's birthday was also around then, Shvat time. And he would go in the same, I thought he's going to go in, okay, this will push it all off by about an hour and a half. Rabbi would walk in, and within 2 minutes he was out. Within 2 minutes he was out. I don't know what. Maybe it has to do with the story of the Rebbe Maharash. The Rebbe Maharash had a chassid who traveled and traveled. He was a poor man. He probably walked most, unless he was able to get someone to take him. And he went into Yechidus, his Pasha to this Yid, and he was in Yechidus for 2 minutes, possibly. He got his bracha, he got his law, and he walked out. He sat down in the Beis Medrash, which was connected to the Rebbe's room. And right after him went in a big, wealthy, high class, high bracket, power person. Went into Yechidus, and so it was interesting. So now walk in, And if you waited a couple of minutes, it wasn't enough. 5 minutes, that wasn't enough. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour. An hour and a half, maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 hours that he was in there. And this chassid was feeling worse and worse. That I get 2 minutes, and this man gets 2 hours. And he went over to the Rebbe attendant, to the Rabbi, who had the key to allow people into the Rebbe, and he said, Rabbi, can I go in? I need to have a yechidus. He said, you just went in there this evening. He said something came up. He said it came up in the last 2 hours. He said yes. All right. And we got him in. He believed it. So the chassid walks into the Rebbe Malash, and the Rebbe says to him, "Remember, you were here. What are you coming from now?" He says, "Rebbe, frankly, I thought that this room is one place on this earth where money doesn't talk." And the Rebbe said, "You're right." He said, "Can I ask you a question?" Sure, he said. I go to Yechidus for 2 minutes. I'm the other man. And I get 2 minutes. And the big rig gets 2 hours right after me. Is that what you call fairness? So the Rebbe Maharaj says, "Oh, du verstehst nicht." He said, "You know this." I said, "You walk in here. Du weißt, was dir fällt. Ich weiß, was dir fällt. You're a poor man, and you know what you're missing. And I know what you're missing. And I give you a word of hadracha. And I give you a bracha, and you're set." He said, "That man came in here, it took me 1 hour and 55 minutes to convince him that I was another man. I had to convince him that he's poor. In other words, I had to prepare him to think, and not because I give him the credit he's rich. He has to understand that he's poor, and that he needs something, and that he has to do avoid it. Sometimes the person feels, the biggest problem is when a person feels complacent, the person feels a party mensch, he thinks he's a great person. So the Rebbe said that you should know that as a minute yechidus, a minute with a niggun, a minute of his oilus, a minute of connection to a Rebbe, to the Rebbe, is a powerful, powerful force. It doesn't go in terms of quantity. It goes in terms of how it touches us. I said I would tell you I have a few verses from Yechidus that I want to share possibly tonight, but the one that I want to say now is an introduction before I start talking. The introduction is that the Rebbe gave a bracha at the end of the Yechidus, and his eyes were closed. And I don't recall what went before these words which I'm going to share with you. And like anything I tell you tonight, the late Sholem, I share this with every single one of you. It's like a nail which you can light from one candle to another. I wrote to the Rebbe before I took this trip, and I said that I'm going to be here tonight. I wrote about this particular evening, and I asked for a bracha that I should be mechaven to say some things which the Rebbe wants, and that it should bring benefit to myself and to everybody who's present. And the Rebbe closed his eyes, and he spoke about klichos and about different idioms which I'm doing, whatever not. This and that, then and about, I guess, my own avodah, which needs a lot of improvement, like everybody. And then the Rebbe said, "Und the nekuda hapnimis haben chassidische nachas from the kinder." I'm telling you the words in Yiddish first, and I will translate it as best as I can into English. The nekuda hapnimis haben chassidische nachas from the kinder. Koileo v'necha elu ha-talmidim, talmidim und talmidois, mushpoim und mushpois. The most essential point for which I bless you is that you should have Hasidic nachas from your children. And as the Chazal say, that when it says Vishanantam Lavonecha, in this Grishma, you should teach them diligently to your children. This refers not only to your physical children, who are certainly your first obligation, but it likewise applies to your children, namely your Talmidim, your students, male and female. I'm a principal of a girls' high school, maybe that's why I mentioned, and we try people that we in our home, let's say, there are people here who visit our home, for example, like Hilula, we know as Tony. That was known as him. You couldn't. You know as Yehuda. Yehuda, the word Yehuda has God's name in the name. All the 4 letters. Yeah, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Gemara says that. But, so as I say l'chaim here, we're giving a bracha and a nechama to all people who need it. We're giving a bracha and a nechama to the whole family of Klal Yisrael. We are trying to connect each person. There's a strand. If you're here tonight, you have somehow a connection. There's a pipeline between you and the Rebbe. And it's up to me, it's up to each of us to open up that channel, make sure the pipeline is clear and it's not being constricted by flack or any other flack that might be holding anything back, the flow of the bracha. So I say l'chaim, Hashem should help, that we should be matzliach, that we should, if you're going to be here for an hour or for 3 hours, whatever it is, with Hashem, I will tell, I hope, some very meaningful stories. And I very much would like if people would ask questions. If you don't want to ask it formally, you can send a little note. I already got one on my yiddish, and we'll come to that later in the evening. And I got the answer anyway. But I wasn't something to say. But when a person asks the question, what's the milah? When a person asks the question, I found this in Hilula. A lot of people are scared to ask. There's some people who have a system that says, don't ask questions. It shows your weakness. And I tell my Talmidim, it's no weakness, it's a strength. It means you want to understand, you want to get there. When a person asks a question, they're looking for the answer to that particular question. So Hashem should help that each person, however long they're here, it should be deep. It's not the length of time. The man was by the Rebbe Marash for 2 minutes, and that was sufficient. And the other person who needed 2 hours didn't make him any more of an agarama. He had to be worked upon to clear the pipeline. We have kind of a large family, a lot of kids, a lot of boys, a lot of girls, and they come to Fabrengens in Beis Lubavitch in London. Go on, you finish davening on a Shabbos Mevorchim in Lubavitch. Sometimes you come home later than you do Rosh Hashanah. Maybe in shul, but 8:30 in the morning starts still. That people like me, I can't say it that quick, so I try to come to 8, and I'm not the first one there. I'm not usually minion, but there's a few people there already. And then the daven, and then the kiddush will not end before 2. We had a kiddush a couple of weeks ago, and it went till about 4:35. And then you come home on the Shabbos. It's beautiful. So some kids love it. They like herring, or they like pickles, or they like the nigunin, or they like to meet with their friends, or maybe their bed in their room is not that comfortable as sitting around over here, or they find a book in the library of Lubavitch house. For other kids, they can't wait to get home. And in Chinuch, you have to be able to find the right point and the right point of contact with each individual. So I had one of my kids used to tell me, Tati, I want to go home. This was about 1 minute after Kiddush was made, or 1 minute before it was made already. And I'd say, soon. And he'd say, well, how long? And I would say, ask me in 15 minutes. I went through different proofers, and then he'd say 20 minutes, and then I realized, what do you want to make your kids stay different? So I started, I said, when can I go home? I said, when you have one single sentence that you heard, and you can share with mommy when you go home, you can go. The Fabreinian is, to this day, and we keep it at home, now, and I know they're all married, we have Urchin, but it's a known thing, even if there be an occasional Shabbos without Urchin, but come home, and I know I'm going to have to say something over that was there for Fabreinian. It's not loved after to say to your family. Before you walk out here tonight, make sure that you have Tzedel Adera. And I would like to suggest that Tzedel Adera should include within it a way that I can continue and enhance the pipeline that lets me have a hiskashus to the Rebbe. So everything we said now is the Hakdama, and we sing the Niggin. We have here an aid of one of our Talmidos, his husband, and Mahorovitz here, just came here tonight, and after the Niggin, we'll start the Fabrein. Chaim, Chaim. Yeah, I remember Rachel that. I remember Chaim, Yididenu, an old friend. You did him over here? Can't hide. You can run, but you cannot hide. Last week, I'll tell you about a question that I was asked. I had a class, the oldest class in the school, and we learn every year, well, most years, some years I do other subjects, but usually, most of the years I do with them, on a certain level, that is a kuntres, that's a sefer with 17 chapters about chinuch, written by the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. Very interesting sefer. It's only quoted by the Rebbe that I know of once, but very many sikhs of the Rebbe and Hayros about chinuch, you can see how they, dovetail here. And I use it as a springboard for all the discussions, and we finished. About school goes on till the end of July. There's a different kind of a school year. It's the same amount of days, but there's a 6-week summer break, and the other 4 weeks they get here and there, 2 weeks here, a week there. We finished it early, so I said, next week we're going to have a siyum, a chavreni. And I give them a chance to ask questions. And as a mechanech, it's a big zuchus to be a mechanech, or to be a parent, or to be a grandparent, or to be a member of a community, an adult member who is like a parent or like a mechanech to all these other members, even if they're not children. It was published in the 1940s, but it was written, it was basically organized by the Rebbe in the 1890s. And it was based on discussions that he had with his father, the Rebbe Rashab, in 1898, a year and a half after the Yeshiva Femchet Milam was founded. We finished it, and I said, and so as a mechanic, and you talk about being a chassid, it's Chabad school, and most of the girls are from Chabad home. And you talk about histashus. Histashus means attachment, connection. And every single member of the school, I'm aware exactly which year, even the oldest pupil was born after Gimel Tammuz. Forget about seeing them or not. At the beginning, after Gimel Tammuz, I used to think there's the ones from before and the ones from after, two tkufos. But today I understand every few years different issues, and the Torah doesn't change. It's how you are able to understand it and apply it to that particular situation. That's where I understand that the essence of flowing Chinuch V'Adrocha. Not to dilute your message, and to be able to say it and to transmit it in the way which is going to be most effective with the individual with whom you are talking. Anyway, so I said, you can ask questions. And they know that I'm a person who very much appreciates questions. So somebody asked me, just a week ago, last Tuesday, just less than a week. So this young lady, 17 years old, she says, why do I need this kashrus? Why do I need, and implicit in the question is I could be a good frum yid, saying why do I have to be a religious Jew? Why do I need a Rebbe? Why do I need his kashrus to the Rebbe? And I have a question, God forbid, questioning the greatness and the role, but how does it affect my life? That's how I understood it. And I always encourage questions. And I didn't say, wait, how can you ask such a question? Chas v'shalom, you never say that. The first thing you have to do is hear the question, and really I see it as an opportunity to share with her. And as anyone who's in Chinuch knows, it tells me, it reminds me what it happens to be. So I want to tell you what I answered. I answered with a story. That somebody from England wrote to the Rebbe. This person was not Chabad by any means. Respected it, but had a major question about Hasidim writing to the Rebbe when there's a problem and asking the Rebbe to daven for Yeshua, for Refuah, for a Shidduch, for Hamasah, for whatever it happens to be. I mean, we had a girl in our school many years ago when people hardly ever traveled to New York. She went to New York, she was coming up with the exam, GCSE, it's like the Regents exam. And she asked the Rebbe for a bracha for these exams. And the Rebbe told her, I give you a bracha, but in order to benefit from it, you have to study. So don't think that the bracha is the instead of avoiding. So it's an opportunity. This person writes to the Rebbe, from a Yid, like, you know, from a literature, or like more like a German style, Yakisha type Hilula, where that was not in those days anyway, so prevalent. And so the Rebbe said, their question was, the Chazal say that the Tfilah HaChoila, if the ill person prays, it's more effective than if somebody else, than a strange person prays. So why should if the person has a problem or an issue, why should I go to somebody else as great and as holy and as elevated as they are and ask them to daven when I'm the person that needs the Yeshua? So the Rebbe answered on two levels. That's what I want to share with you. This was the first part of my answer to this. This was a chabrein with a class. We finished the whole sefer. I said we have a chabrein, and I gave them money, buy food, not like this. Super shlever b'shayta, but we had to a lesson in school for an hour of chabrein. And this was the question. So the Rebbe said, number one, it's a Gemara Mefereshes in Bava Basra. Yesh chol of the base, what if there's an ill person in the house, Yelech Eitzel HaChacham. You should go to the Chacham. Right, Rabbi says. That's coming. That you go to the Chacham, and he will daven for you. That's Al Pi Nigla, that's Al Pi Gemara, not only a justification, but an encouragement to do such a thing. To go to the tzaddik for a bracha. In Pnimiyus Yoni, according to what it says in Kabbalah and in Hasidus, the Rebbe is called an Neshama Chloris. That means an inclusive soul. A Neshama that includes within it other souls. And the Nasi, the leader of a generation, is the Nasi of that whole generation, which means that every Neshama there is a Neshama. And I have to put on my tefillin, I have to daven and say Krishma and be a Yid and love Yehiten in Machshava and in Nidiyah and in Nidibah and in Maisa and everything else. I have to do my avodah on the one hand. But on the other hand, I am a Neshama Pratis. I am an individual soul which is incorporated together with the Neshama Chloris. The analogy is of a body. It's called Kol Yisrael and Koima Achas Shlema. All the Jewish people are one configuration. And Rebbe Rosh Hashanah is an acronym. Rosh B'nai Yisrael, the head of the Jewish people. And it says in Sfarim, it says in Tanya, and it says it from Yari, from the Kabbalah, that the neshamas which are called Einayim, the neshamas that are called Yadayim, the neshamas that are called Raglayim, the neshamas that are called Boys, and the neshamas which are called Tziponayim and Tziponei Ragla, which means the toenails. There's a neshama which is as far away from the direct nerve centers with the brain, like the toenails, but it's still connected and it still grows, and it needs a connection to its central nervous system in order to function properly. So when a person, God forbid, it hurts his finger, and he feels the pain, that pain is not just felt in the finger. The pain is really felt in the brain. The brain that tells you that there's something wrong with the finger. God forbid, if there's something that happens in the brain, it could be that the person ceases to feel the pain. They would then become paralyzed in different other parts of the body which were not really affected. So the Rebbe said, when a tzaddik prays for a person, you're not asking somebody else to daven for you. You're asking for your own inner self. You're asking for the person who's davening for you is not somebody else. That person feels the pain and is part of that Kodesh Lema of the Yidden. It doesn't release me from the Azara. It's an opportunity for me to live a more healthy, spiritually healthy life and physically healthy life. That's basically what I remember. I heard that the Rebbe answered to this Jew in London well over 50 years ago. And then I said, in line with that, the Medrash says that the neshama is called by 5 different names. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechida. In Hasidus it says that those 5 names are not 5 synonyms, just 5 different ways of saying the same thing. It's actually 5 levels of the neshama. Nefesh relates to Maisa, Dibur, and Machshava, to practicality. And Ruach relates to the emotions, to all the psukim which back up all these things. Neshama relates to bina, to understanding. Higher relates to chokhmah, which is not a comprehension of the idea, but the spark, the actual source of the idea. And Yechida is the makif, that is the overall connection. It says Yochid K, it's the connection. The neshama is called a chelik elakami mal, ma'amosh in Tanya. In Iyov it says chelik elakami mal. It's a part of Hashem above, where it says Baram Atem Hashem Elokecha. Person is the neshama, is a part of Hashem. That's called the Yechidah Shebenefesh. And every person, normally, by the way, that's why on Yom Kippur there are 5 tefillahs. Because Yom Kippur is Galas HaYechidah. If a person were to go, I said, what happens if somebody decides it's a very, very busy month of September, October? I said, I can't afford to keep Yom Kippur then. You know what? August the 15th, things are quiet. I'll take a 26-hour fast. I'll say I'll take 5 times, I'll go Shamnu, I'll get a mikvah 3 times a day, I'll pluck up Parasim, whatever, anything you want. Go through the whole ritual of Yom Kippur. Will that person get forgiven from Hashem for that tshuva? Definitely yes. And he does tshuva 24/7, anytime, 365. Will it be like Yom Kippur? No. Because Yom Kippur is equal to Tzumas Shalom. I don't go into that now, but the actual day is the day of Yechidah Shebenefesh. It's the day when the Yechidah is revealed and is accessible. The Kohen Gadol did every avodah, not just the avodah, the extra avodah of Yom Kippur, not the avodah spinning. He actually did every single thing. The Kohen every avodah had to be done by the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, because when Yechidah is revealed, it affects everything. Your whole life becomes different. That's what happened on Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol did every single area of the avodah, even the normal, the daily things. We say 5 tefillahs to correspond to that. And every person, when you daven and you learn and you do mitzvahs, it's very difficult to operate at your full capacity. We operate at a tiny fraction usually. I'm not saying it's mitzvah sanoshim in the mother, which means mechanical, but that's also in the madrega. It means that your body has become trained to do the right thing, even if you're not feeling it. It's a tremendously precious thing. But that's not the goal. The end goal is to be able to experience it on a deeper level. So, in the terms of the Koima Achash Shleim of Klal Yisrael, Rebbe is called the Yechidah of the generation. One name is called the Roy, the Neshama Klolis, called the Yechidah Shebenefesh. The Rebbe's Yechidah Shebenefesh cannot replace mine, but it can connect and reveal my Yechidah Shebenefesh. In other words, through his pastors to a Rebbe, what you get is an access to your own Yechidah Shebenefesh. So it's not merely when you're going to the Rebbe and he's talking about his pastors, it's not saying I'm now surrendering, transferring, I'm passing on or relaying to somebody else something which I have to do, and then you say, what do I need it for? I'll just do it myself. What you're saying is you're accessing an inner koyach of the whole world and of yourself. Your whole life becomes different. You reveal your own Yechidah Shebenefesh by connecting to the Yechidah of the generation. It's not something which replaces your life. It's something which connects you. It's machaber you with your own deepest self. That's basically the nekuda what I answer this person. And I want to tell you a story. A story which is, I'm not going to tell you the name of the town where this story happened, because it's still a work in, it's still happening. When I heard the part which I'm going to tell you, I cried. I was so moved by as somebody who goes into assembly once a week with 120 Talmidos, and I have to think, my job is to get them to become better Oivdei Hashem. And better Oivdei Hashem means to get as close as possible to the own Yechidah Shabbat. And that means it's kashrus to the Rebbe. And they weren't even born in Gimel Talmud 20 years ago, today. And here comes the story. I heard this story personally from a shaliach, a young shaliach in his 20s in England. He's only out there for 2 or 3 years. A Siddushim Gaman B'Tachlis. Very dedicated person who's done. I was wondering how we can maintain spiritually a shaliach in such a place. He's a campus, this Chabad on campus. He's one of our 14 people who looks after Chabad on campus. Now, I have a son. We have a son who has Chabad on campus in West London, like near Baker Street, that part of London. And he has every Friday night 100 students come there, and the wife makes a meal. Once a month they have a bigger one that's 150, whatever. But they're in London. Even the students that come, whatever they are, they're different types, it's in different cities usually. It's the center of London, it's very cosmopolitan, it's very international. But you're in London. Anyone who goes in London, walks on the underground, you're likely to meet somebody with a black hat at some stage, even with a beard, and payas, with a kapot, whatever it is. It's London. If it's not London, if it was Philadelphia, I don't know, these different cities that have, even without a yeshiva. This is a town, the town I'm talking about, the Shliach, is a little, maybe in secular terms it might be large or significant, but Jewish-wise, as far as I know, I've not been there for a decade, but as far as I would imagine, there's probably not a single black hat besides the Shliach. And maybe there's a minion of Shomer Shabbos, like modern Orthodox, possible. And he's in that town. And one day, he gets a phone call from Israel telling him the following story. In this town, about 45 years ago, there lived a family. And this family had a son. And this son was very much attracted to Yiddishkeit. He became fanatically frum in terms of what somebody in that town would understand. And that meant he went to Bnei Akiva, Orthodox thing, to Shomer Shabbos, very sincere, halavai, we should have the Kavona. And that's what he knew. He went to the Machaneh, he went to the summer camp, and then when he passed the age of compulsory schooling, which was 16, 17, whatever it was, he went on Aliyah, alone. And he went to Kibbutz Lavi. Now we have Kibbutz Lavi. What's it known for? They make furniture for shul. That's their factory. They make furniture for shuls throughout the world. It's a Mizrahi kibbutz. It's an Orthodox kibbutz. He went there, but because he was so young, they appointed a couple that was in the town to. That couple were going to look after him, like foster. They were sort of like adopted him. Now, a few years later, he was already 20, 21. This was 40 years ago, exactly. There was the Yom Kippur War. And he was Nidgayes, he was mobilized like everybody else. It was a very difficult time. And he went to the front and he was killed. Hashem Yinkom. He died. He was murdered on behalf of Kiddush Hashem. And what happened is that he had a sister who was much younger, maybe 10 years younger than him, I imagine. From the story, that's how it looks like. And she, as a result of all this, became highly disillusioned with Judaism. Not because she had a question in Emunah, Lama Osa Hashem Bacha. Her brother was a Kodesh. He gave his life for his country, for his people. You know, that wasn't what really got her. What got her was that she felt that the community, the local community, did not show sufficient sensitivity to the grief of the family. I don't know what way or what it was. It's not relevant to the story that we have here. It's relevant as well to know how important it is to show feeling to someone else. I'm not judging anyone. And it's ad kedei kach that she said, I want nothing, he's not going to a shul anymore. He's not keeping it anymore. And she went and made a conscious decision to leave the Jewish people, and she married out. The person who's calling up the shliach, this is a year ago, last summer, to tell him this whole story that I just told you, was the couple. Now they're an old elderly couple, they're over 70, that's old, isn't it? And maybe over 80, right? And they called him up and they said, could you get in touch with this girl? Maybe they said, Chabad has a shliach. They couldn't believe it. Such a town has a shliach of Chabad. He did, but there's a campus. And they said, maybe you can go and find her. The shliach is a fine, a Chassidish man. And he said, fine, tell me, what's her name? Got the name. I'm not sure if the so-called married name. I'm not sure if they knew. They certainly got a name. Address? No idea. Telephone? No idea. Email? No idea. WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these different famous anecdotes. Didn't know any way of contacting this person. Just a name from the past, from 35, 40 years ago. So the shliach said, all right, I'll see what I can do. And Tzachnish gefoiled, he wasn't lazy. And he worked hard until he found out exactly the present name and address and telephone number of this person. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. If you know him, you know that he will do it. He understood. He a lot of miracles I saw from his shlichus. And then he had to decide how is he going to contact her. And he decided not to phone her up because you can slam the phone down, but you can't slam a person down if you go to the house. And he decided to go visit at 6 o'clock in the evening, because that's a time when everybody's home from work and not yet asleep. The evening didn't start, whatever it is, that's the time, the most likely time to find her at home. There was a Rebbe Shluchim there. It's about a year and a half, a year and a month ago, last summer, May, June. And he went there with a bochum to the house. Then he rang the bell, and she wasn't home. He said, I'm waiting here. Sure enough, 5-10 minutes later maximum, comes this middle-aged 50-year-old woman come rolling down the street, with 2 dogs on the leash, and she's she's coming home. And suddenly she sees 2 guys with beards. She almost like she thought that this is it. Maybe she thought it's about a verse from Michael already. I don't know what she thought. She suddenly was in a state of shock. But she's a very polite person, and she says, wait here for a moment, I'll be with you. She went in and she settled down the doors probably, came out 5 minutes later and said, come on in, told them over the story which you heard. They said, so what happened? He said the guy who she married, so-called married, he left her after a few years. They were 3, 4 years, 5 years, whatever. And they had 2 children, a son and a daughter. And Shaliach said, where are they? So she said, they are both in their 20s. And they live they have their own apartment that they rent or they bought, I don't know, they're living somewhere in this town. He said, would you mind if I got in touch with your son? I'm not sure. The story from now on is going to be only about the son. I don't know about the daughter. I'll have to find this out. He said, do you mind if I get in touch with your son? She said, I taught my children to be good, to be polite, to be independent, make their own decisions. I don't, I'm happy you do what you want. So he got in touch with the son, went to visit him in his apartment, and told him about the Chabad house that has a meal, just like my son has in the middle of London. In that town, they have a Friday night in his home. He has a big room there. And it's my impression, 15, 20 young people come there every Friday night, and they have a speaker, or they get the Israeli ambassador, or they get an Arab to speak, or a lawyer, or a professor, or a theme Shabbos, a Russian Shabbos they have, or they have a Moroccan Shabbos. They do different types of ways. It's all there for one reason: to get people into the door, or to get bodies into the door. So, in every university society in England, Tony, you tell me if I'm getting it right, they have what they call a term card. The term card is there's 3 terms in the year in the English university. So the term card for the Chabad houses, which most of them have such a thing, which they give out, or nowadays they do it through Facebook and other social media, but they still have very often term cards. And on the term card it would say in the back, this is who we are, this is our address, this is our website. We have every Tuesday afternoon from 1 to 2, Parsha and pizza. On Wednesday we have lunch and learn. And Thursday we have Stump the Rabbi. And Friday we have baking challah with the Rebbe. There's something going on every week regular. And then they also have the list of all the Friday nights this term. If there's 10, 15 weeks in the term, it tells you that we're going to have a speaker this week, or this week the summer's like, it tells you 7 o'clock every Friday, till late, meet young people, etc. He comes to this place, and they start talking to this boy. This boy says, I know that my mother was born Jewish, but my upbringing was 0. The only Jewish thing that I ever did in my whole life is that when I was 4 years old, I was in a synagogue. Was it Yom Kippur? Was it Simchat Torah? Was it Tisha B'Av? Was it a Chasna, Levaya, Bar Mitzvah? He didn't know. Just knew that he had been in a synagogue. He didn't remember it even. At the age of 4, he said, 0, nothing against it, looking forward. It's not relevant in my life. Tells you, 7 o'clock every Friday, till late, meet young. Well, they gave him this card. He was very polite, and he took it. And they spoke for an hour or whatever. And Friday night, you know what happened? He didn't turn up. There came another Friday night, he didn't turn up. And then it came a Friday night, and suddenly, this guy comes running in there, sort of like incognito. He came like, I don't know if he literally was like this, but he was like, sort of like, not part of the group, but sitting there at the table, didn't say a single word, and looking around the whole time. It reminded me of Bob Dylan. You ever heard Bob Dylan, a singer? And it was a certain tkufa where he was a little bit full. He was performing, but I don't know if he was keeping Shabbos properly, but he was not performing Friday night. And he was in England, and suddenly he turns up in the Lubavitch house, and now he's in Stamford Hill. He comes in there, but he didn't want anyone to know who he is. He's wearing a rather motorcycle jacket with a hood, and there's about 150 kapotas there, and he thought that no one would know who he is. But everyone says, who's that person in there? I mean, this weird-looking guy. Anyway, so this guy was there, he was just sitting there at the Friday night table. Then, about 10 days after that, he turned up to a weekday shiur, and then he started coming every single Friday night. He became a regular. A year and a half ago, It was the week before the Kinnus HaShluchim. All the Shluchim gathered together in New York in Cheshvan, at the end of Cheshvan, November time. The Shliach announces at the meal, at the end of the meal, next week I'm not going to be here because I'm going for a convention with a couple of thousand rabbis in New York, and the wife will look after the house, or the bacha will come in. I don't know exactly what arrangement. Usually they make an arrangement if it's during the term time that the students shouldn't lose out. This boy waits till the very end, till everybody leaves, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and he goes over to the shliach in a very able and polite way, and he says, would it be appropriate for me to ask you to bring me something from New York? So the shliach says, if I can do it, I'd be glad to do it. What do you want me to bring you from New York? He says, could you bring me a picture of the man who's on the wall? He didn't remember the name. A picture of the man who's on the wall in your living room, meaning the Rebbe. So the shliach says, no problem, I'll bring you the picture. But the shliach is also an able guy. He says, would it be appropriate for me to ask you why you want that picture? So he says, I'll tell you why I want the picture. When you came to my house 3 months ago, whenever it was, my apartment, and you came with your term card, and you came to me with your Chabad house, everything you were telling me about, I was brought up to be polite and to, not to say anything rude to anybody. But I'll tell you what I was thinking. Nowadays, wherever you go, somebody's giving you something, trying to sell you something. One person's trying to sell you a phone plan. This one's selling you an insurance policy. Another one's trying to sell you a religion. And this one's trying to tell you to become a vegetarian, go to the gym. Everybody has something that they want you to buy into their thing. And as far as I was concerned, this was just like, nothing against you, that's your job, to try to do that. I don't respond to these kinds of sales pitches, and I had no intention of ever coming to this Chabad house. In fact, I was going to throw away 2 weeks later, I was clearing up my apartment, and I was about to throw this out, like this, while I was clearing everything away. I said to myself, you know what? I'm on the website. Funny guys, the beers come here. Let me check it out. He goes onto the website, and he sees a link to a video. And the video was a video, like living Torah probably, of the Rebbe saying a Sikha. And he said he was mesmerized. He said, this person was not trying to sell me something that he wanted. He was trying to tell me how I can bring my own inner self out. That's the first time I ever heard this in my life. And I became interested. This guy's never had anything which came through this Aleph. Nothing. He said, I saw this person is trying to bring out my inner self. I decided I got to check this out. I went Friday night, and you saw I didn't say a word. I wasn't there to participate. I was there to check out. And then I checked out one of the classes, and I saw that this is really something which is talking about me, about my inner self. And that's something I'm happy to buy into. That's why I went, and that's why I want the picture. And I heard the story, Mamish, it hit me that here's a person, I'm worried about people who living in the Rebbe Yisrael from a very frum home and everything else, to teach them about the Rebbe. The truth is that if somebody says, can I have access to the Rebbe? What do I need this access for? You have access to yourself through that. You have access to your own inner neshama. By the way, about a couple of months ago, I realized, I looked on my phone, I don't have the phone number of that shliach. I don't have his mobile number. Somehow I meet him at different kiddushim, different places. So I emailed him, and I said, I just realized I don't have your number. Could you send me? Give me your, just for my record. I want your number, your personal mobile number. And P.S. Remember the boy you spoke about 6 months ago when I met him at the Kinnus? Where's he holding that? He said, maybe, in the last couple of months this was. So he writes me back his number, and he says he still comes every week, and he's currently dating a Jewish girl that he met at Chabad house. And I don't want to say more, and I want no one to go and try to find out too much, because it's still in the middle. Mitzvah Hashem, one day we'll be able to report on it. Rabbi Morozov, someone will check, Rabbi Morozov, will find out exactly what it is. So that's basically what it's about. Talk about his kashrus. His kashrus means my connection to the Rebbe. And why is it important? It's important because if you want to function as HaKadosh Baruch Hu really meant you to at full capacity and not just on a superficial level, then you need to access your own Yechidah Shebenefesh. And that you get through Rosh B'nai Yisrael, through the Nossim. Nowadays you come to Fabrik and people say, hey, did you read the latest book about the Rebbe? A book by Rabbi Miller, by Rabbi Kalushkin, by Rabbi Steinsaltz, all these things. And I went to a Fabrik in a shul a couple of weeks ago. I was here for a chasana. And I went to a shul, and I hadn't been to this, like about 75 shuls, and I know there's a lot of little minyanim, like, you got 175 people that come there, Shabbat. I went to this meeting the first time I went there, and the rabbi was sitting there. It was early in the morning, sitting. He says, look, will you for brain to this? I got there for brain, I see a lot of young guys working, finding the light. I said, if you think that this is going to be a book review, it's not. It's a Habranian. I said, I did not read. And I was given each of those books. And one of the persons who published it gave me the book. Then 2 weeks later he asked me, do you have any comments? I said, I only looked at the pictures so far. I intend to read them all, probably cover to cover maybe, but it might take a couple of years. I said, it's not my priority this morning. I have them there in the room where I keep the regular Sforim which I read, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I said, but I heard enough about them, and we have our own online forum of almost 2,000 shluchim, comments, this, is it appropriate, this. So I know pretty much about all those 3 books. I can promise you. You want to read the book? Read the book. Some things are inaccurate. Things I heard were grossly inaccurate in some of these books, But I assume a lot of work went into them. It's mostly probably accurate. But I promise you that the book tells you more about the author than about the Rebbe. And if you want to know the Rebbe, learn a maimah of the Rebbe. I promise you, know the Rebbe much, much better than if you read even the bestseller on the New York Times list. And I heard once a Fabrengen in 770, this is about 4:30 in the morning, in the first year the Rebbe made Simchas Beis Yeshiva, all night dancing, and the David Hansen, I think it was, from Eretz Yisrael, from the very Choshev Chassidim of the previous generation. And he was talking to a young man who lived on Eastern Parkway, a businessman, moderately successful businessman, but a Chassidish young man, a Chassidish Bein B'Tachlis. The young man is someone I did, very, very fine person. And the Rosh Hashiva from Eretz Yisrael, the Chassidish Yidid, was telling him, here's what I learned to look at the Torah. He said, to learn Chassidus. That's how you'll get to know the Rebbe, and that's how you'll get to know yourself. And he said you will not get it properly if you learn the Maimah once. He said minimum, take the same Maimah, if you start on that Sedra, learn the Maimah minimum of 4 times, he said. I would have said, since I'm not such a good person, I would say 10 times. But learn it many times until it starts percolating through your system, and you hear what the Rebbe is saying. You'll feel a oneness with the Rebbe. I tell you a Yechidus, now I'm going to share with you a Yechidus, which happened to me 53 years and several months ago. It was Shvat. I used to go to Shvat. This I'm going to tell you exactly when it was. It was Yud Shvat, Tavshin Chavav. This is first hand. It happened to me in the Rebbe's room. Behekted. Before I say that, I was at that time a Bach in Yeshiva. And somehow or another, it just entered my mind that I have not had the privilege to formally surrender myself to the Rebbe. It was 10 years after the Rebbe was Makabel in the Siyas, and I heard all the stories. You hear today even more than then, but you heard then the stories about how in Tavshin Yud, the Rebbe Rayatz, the Frierdiker Rebbe, was nostalgic. And Chassidim around the world, they didn't know what was happening. What happened was, around the world, people who knew the Rebbe told others, and they wrote a Ksavis Kashas, a formal statement of a person. I said, I never did it. And I wanted to know, how can I be Mekushim to the Rebbe? Yes, I did that. That Yud Shvat that year was on a Friday. The Rebbe went to the oil, he came back to have a mincha, I remember, upstairs. And then they did Kabbalah Shabbos. And by Kigavna, before Kigavna, after Kabbalah Shabbos, the Rebbe left his place by davening at the wall of Keren, Mizrachis, Droinis, like all the Rebbeim in all generations were at that wall, the southeast wall of the shul. And he went to the center of the shul, the center of the south wall in 770, and said a Maimon, what's he begun? And then Shabbos there was a Fabrengen. And what's the Shabbos was the big Fabrengen with the microphone, and people travel to it, etc. And at that Fabrengen I said L'chaim to the Rebbe. And as I held out my course, I said to myself, Rebbe, please help me to have a family. I got the eye contact, and the Sikha, which started right after that, the Rebbe began by saying, sometimes a person gets a feeling that they want to have a couple. And they think that it comes from their own efforts. But really, it doesn't come. It's not anything that they did that brings this about. It's the Rebbe thinking about them that makes them have the desire to have eskashus to the Rebbe. The Rebbe was talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe, Alpi Pashto, but I was listening, hanging on to every word. And it says in Chassidus, and we put the Torah, the difference between Isarusa de La'ela and Isarusa de La'safa. An inspiration which begins from above, from Hashem, or an inspiration which begins from the person himself. An inspiration which begins from above is infinite, it's powerful, it's Ein Sof, the Ein is Ein Sof. So the Ein gives you an inspiration, powerful. The one that comes from below is according to my effort, according to my ability. But on the other hand, something which comes from above has not been internalized. I'm not a keli, I'm not a vessel, I'm not a receptacle to it, and therefore, the minute the Hisoidus goes away, it's gone. Whereas something which may be small, but it comes from my effort, is internalized, it changes you, it makes you to a different person. So the Alter Rebbe says, What happens if a person has, and it's a Rusa he gets a tremendous inspiration suddenly? What he should do is connect it to Maisa B'Poyel. Do something practical, and by doing it, you will sort of like give it an anchor. You bring it down into this world. So the Rebbe said the same thing. It says in Hayoim Yoim that the Rabbeim had a seder of thinking about Chassidim and the Ahava, the love to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe responding with his love, and that causes you to want to think about the Rebbe, but it's coming from outside yourself. Therefore, you have to connect it to Maaseh B'Poyel. So that was all I needed. The next night, I went into Yechidus, and I was writing my tzedel. So I wrote a few things, but one of the things I wrote was I asked the Rebbe, I said that I would love to be Mekusha to the Rebbe. And I feel a true desire to be Mekusha. Sometimes I have my cold moments, sometimes I have my doubts, my palpite, my spakes, but basically, that's the track that I'm on. That's where I want to be. And so and these are the words I wrote, exact words. I wrote, V'shoyal ani et l'kroy pirushas ad mashlita eich lohavia l'poyel ka'atzas k'roy pirushas ad mashlita v'sichas ha'azvazis. I'm asking you, Rebbe, how can I anchor it down? How can I bring it to practical action like your advice in the Sikha of the Rabbi? As I said before, in the Yechidus you didn't speak. You wrote this what you had to say down. I worked on that nusach. By the way, what the Rebbe answered me, I'm going to show you in a minute. And the next day, I sent it into the Rebbe for correction or to make sure I understood correctly. It's published in a Torah of one of our children's weddings. And the Rebbe's answer, Baruch Hashem, he answered that he's looking at the tzedel, and his answer started off with the words, the Ike his kashrus is durch Torah. The main his kashrus is through learning Torah. Like it says in Tanya, he didn't say the Perik, but Perik here, which speaks about the haflah of learning Torah. That through Torah, he becomes a yichud niflo she'en kamoyu nimtze klal b'gashmis. That through Torah, there is a fantastic unity which has no counterpart at all in the physical world. Chitas, and the Rebbe said, if you learn what I learned, then you'll be connected to me. And first and foremost, Hiten the Sidney HaYeshiva to keep the times of the Sidorim in the Yeshiva times to such an extent that it should also inspire others, influence others for good. That's what the Rebbe said. I was standing there. I knew I've got the Yechidus is going to hold Yechidus for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and I'm going to walk out. It's going to be next year before I can come back in again. And the Rebbe said I should learn what the Rebbe learns. How do I know what the Rebbe learns? So I can't say to the Rebbe, excuse me, what do you learn? You give me your study schedule, Rabbi. The Rebbe. So I waited till the end of the whole Yechidus, and I said the following words in the following tone. I said, the Rebbe gives up, there's a learn of the Rebbe learned. That's all I said, half a sentence. The Rebbe said I should learn what the Rebbe learns. And it was understood that I'm saying, what is that? What is that? So here I got eye contact. The Rebbe looked me in the eye and he said, Ich lern Nigla und Chasidus. I learned the revealed part of Torah and the inner part. And the Rebbe said that there's a Maimon in L'Kutei Torah Bamidbar which describes the difference between Torah and mitzvahs. Every mitzvah relates to a different limb of the body. So each mitzvah is compared to one of the 248 limbs. It's one of the 248 mitzvahs. The Torah is called Zois HaTorah Odom. Odom is Oishis Aleph Dam. It's like the blood circulation. The bloodstream is identical throughout the entire body. To the brain and to the toe is the same blood. So if you learn Torah, you become Mekusha with the Rebbe. And as we mentioned before, Mekusha with your own Yechidus Nefesh. How does that happen? You take a minor, you take a sikha. Today it's available in every possible medium that you prefer. Pasha, to learn a sikha, but it should be regular, not just once in a while you get a sikha. Even if it's for 5 minutes a day, that's all you can do. It's better if you do it an hour or a half hour, at least 15, 20 minutes a day. Or a half hour 3 times a week. Make up your time. But it should be chok v'lo yava. Whatever happens that day, it's done. I know I have certain parts of my shiurim of the day. I haven't finished yet. Last night before I in Monday, I didn't get back till about 2 o'clock, I was after 2, I was up till about 4 or 5, closing off, and I was trying to finish what I had to finish. But there's no way I was going to go to bed before I finish what I had to finish. And I'm not such a big person. And a person who's Mesuda and who's real, you don't have to do it till 3 in the morning. You do it at night, so it's a good, sometimes it's very good, the last 10 minutes before Krishna Shalamit, the last 20 minutes, to take out a sikh, take something which is accessible. I'm talking all the time, I want to tell you a different sikh, a beautiful story. The Rebbe was talking to me about one of my brothers. I went to England at the end of Tovshin Chafei. Chavav, Tisha Chavav, you were allowed to come in once every 2 years. Yeah, it was once every year and a half and a year and 3/4. They also allowed it. But my brother was getting married, Kislev Tovshin Chav Zayin, a year and a quarter after I went on for it. And my father, Yochanan Levracha, wanted me to come in to the wedding. So I wrote to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, Mikiven Sha'avicha wrote, since your father wants, come in. So I came in. It was Yutas Kislev. His wedding was in Kislev time. And I walked in, and my wife was with me also. And we had a lot of interesting things, which I don't tell you one to put it. The Rebbe said to me, your brother was getting married. He said, your brother's getting married. Is that the brother that you used to learn Chassidus with him? Now I had to think back for a second. I forgot this myself. 5 years before, when I was a Bachar in 77, before my wedding, this was already 4 years after my Chassidus, almost. 5 years before, we used to learn. It didn't come out every week. It came out, maybe over the year, maybe it was 20 times, I don't know. So he came. At some stage, I must have informed the Rebbe. I don't believe I wrote. Probably I informed maybe orally. And the Rebbe says, is this the same brother who you used to learn Chassidus with him? So I said, yes. So the Rebbe said, Elad Nechal Chassidus. Is he still learning Chassidus? So what should I answer? I was in English. So I said, ich weiß nicht. So the Rebbe gave a smile, Mama's one beautiful, his whole face lit up. He said, if you listen to that, Lashon Hara isn't good. He said, you don't want to talk Lashon Hara against your brother. And then the Rebbe told me something beautiful, which I want to share with you. It's relevant to every one of us. He says, tell him, what I'm going to tell you now, in my name. He says, Dogen in my name, onach rayas, not your responsibility, blame me in other words. He said at least twice, maybe 3 times, onach rayas. Certainly twice, in my name. He said, say it in my name. Zogen as ovar is ovar. The past is past. And he should learn Chassidus. And it's available in Hebrew, or in Lashon Kodesh, or Yiddish, or in English. My brother is quite fluent in all of those languages. If people here know my brother, and I know he wouldn't mind me telling the story. And he said he can get somewhere, somehow, he can go and find a sefer and a method that he could learn Chassidus regularly. And the next day was my brother's actual wedding. And I went in that morning, the next morning, and I said, you know, the Rebbe sent the regards to you. Really? I told him the whole story, what the Rebbe said, and he was so moved, and so inspired that the Rebbe cared, and told him. And I got him a few sparring, then his chasana, and subsequently, this is going back, this is 47 years ago. He had a career in learning every Shabbos with the Shliach, the local Shliach. He lived in one place, he lived in another place. He was in Borough Park, he was in Staten Island, Lake, whatever it was. He had careers to learn. What I'm saying here to ourselves, don't get trapped in the Mitzrayim, in the golus of your own past. Don't get trapped in the concern that because of bad choices that I made, either of commission or of omission, that because of that, it's beyond me. What you have is now. A woman came to me, I knew her when she was a teenager, a counselor in Canada. Very typical woman, wild, like, you know, she was advising kids of 10 years old to run away from home. We had to rein her in. She was very red hot. And then she comes to me in my office and she says, Rabbi Lou, next week I'm going to be 55 years old. It's hard to believe. She's telling me something to make me feel good about that. So I said, I'm telling you right now, whether you're 55 or 65 or 35 or 95 or 15, what you have is today. Everything else is nostalgia, speculation, hang-ups. It's not worth it. It's not the only show in town is today. You're a teenager. Today you're a teenager. Now you sit down, over is over. You want to connect, you take a Maimach Siddur, take a Sikha. Today you can get it online, you can get it on phone, you can get it in Sfarim, you can get it on DVDs, you can get it through Chavruses, you can get it in presented beautiful print and with Chassidus Mevuedes, Oishis Middle Boys. You have every, to suit every single taste, literally. There's no excuse. And the promise is that A, you have a scrashes to the Yechidus HaKloli, and B, you have a scrashes to yourself. So L'chaim, Rebbe Gehofen, it's Gimel Tammuz, Shnas Esrim, it's a very, very special moment. The Gemara says that at the age of 20, a person becomes mature. Not chas v'shalom independent. Because you still want to touch you on your Yechidus Nefesh. But there's a special koyach which comes, as the Rebbe once said, that every aliyah, every level that the Rebbe reaches, you can say, what does it do with us? He's going further and further, chas v'chalila. What it does is it elevates the accessibility to every person who only wants to connect to it. So l'chaim, that Hashem can help, that we take full advantage. And believe me, the next time I talk, it's going to be shorter. Okay? And B, I'm going to answer the first question, and then I'm going to ask for other questions. Chaim. Beautiful.
אבי, השולחן של הרב פה.
Yehuda!
I would like to share with you the first question. She's going. I don't know if you're allowed to come in. Seeing other legal. This is my nephew. Nephew is well out.
You have to climb over it? Okay, I'm going to just end this. Here's the question, anonymously presented by a good friend of mine. Here is the question.
are you obliged to invite guests for Shabbos or Yom Tov? Are you obliged to invite guests for Shabbos or Yom Tov on the fringes? You know, people that are a little weird. Either with an abrasive personality or just plain strange or weird and hard to deal with. You have to invite these people for Shabbos, or maybe even mentally disturbed people. Are you obliged to invite them for Shabbos if having them seriously affects the Shabbos atmosphere for either you, your spouse, or your children? And the person who gave you the question gave their view. I argue that you are obliged, no matter how difficult it feels. And that those who do regularly have such guests are also uncomfortable, the people who you expect to take them. But they believe it is something you have to deal with. On the other hand, there are some others in my family who argue that you do not have to do something which affects the family in such a way, and something which sends the kids running from the table at the first opportunity. As someone who has had literally thousands of Shabbos guests, what do you think and what do you do? So the question is the writer correct? Or are there other family members who says, take them no matter what, no matter how difficult, no matter how weird, no matter how challenging, no matter how disturbed, no matter what the effect, take them as a Shabbos guest? And the family says, you have to be a bit more selective and careful because of the effect it has. My answer is, and I will welcome other people to join in this discussion. This is an interactive program. My answer is that you're both right. Can you do it the Meiser with the robe? He says, you're right. He says, you're right. The wife says, how can they both be right? He says, you're also right. No. The point is, I would answer that this is a very delicate thing, and you have to a certain extent, operate in a case-by-case analysis. And that it has to do with, number one, your own family situation. Number two, the exact nature of the person. Number three, what the dangers might be, physical or spiritual. Now, I'll tell you what I did afterwards, but what I'm saying now is a distillation of over 50 years' experience of having guests Shabbos. So, you know, the heck, before I come to the specific answer, I want you to know that I was once learning a class in Lubavitch, Project Return, of teaching Hilula. And there it spoke about David and Shaul. So they said that David was the person who had selflessness and followed what Hashem said. Shaul, holach achahatam. Shaul lost the kingship because he didn't have total obedience and surrender. Shaul was a tzaddik gomer. He wasn't like a mistaken. Shaul was a person who served Hashem according to the avodah of Moshe. Shaul made a chayvus hanohor. It says in Chassidus. He was the person who embodied the sphere of bina, of understanding of godliness. And on the level of understanding of godliness, you see beautiful sheep, the fattest, most fantastic sheep that could possibly be envisaged. You take them and you sacrifice them to Hashem. But as Shmuel and Rabbi told him, that if Hashem said, you kill them because they come from Amalek, you kill them and you don't try to see the beauty of the Avodas HaKarbonis at that moment. Listening to Hashem is better than a korban. Better than bringing a sacrifice, but you do what Hashem wants. And the Malchus Shayitin Hashem L'Reicha Atoy Mimeto. And God will give your kingship, the royal lineage, from your colleague who's better than you are. Who is that? That was David HaMelech. What is David HaMelech? He said, Hashem wants it, that's what you do. So I'm sitting and teaching this class, Tillim, there was one of the capitals which speaks about the contrast between David and Shaul, and I told him what we just said, basically. And a woman says, a very good question. She said, how could Shaul, tzaddik, a king, he was head and shoulders above the whole nation, and it says in Chassidus, his shoulders were, his meaning his emotion attributes was surpassing the intellectual capacity of everybody else in the whole nation. That's how great he was. How could he go and not do what Hashem said? That's what somebody asked. So I told him a story which happened at a Shabbos day. Didn't ask him. We're talking about having Shabbos guests, 1970s, and all the hippies were coming with rings and long hair and mices. And we once had a convention there, and there was a woman, a firm woman, and she started screaming at me. And she said, we have to teach our children to despise these kind of people. And not bring them to the Shabbos table. Shabbos table is a beautiful, beautiful event. It's something so nice. So I said to the woman that that's what Shaul said. He wasn't just, this woman was not just rebelling. She was saying, you want to build something beautiful to show your children. Shaul Melech says, I want to take something beautiful and give it to Hashem. I once had a guy called me up in Lubavitch house in London. I said, Emerson Meiser. A full boy from Stamford Hill, he learned yeshiva, and he spent a couple of months before Pesach preparing his own personal Kedushim on the Haggadah, nice Vatorah. And he called me up, because he knew me, I'm a very nice guy. And he says, Rabbi Lou, please, I want you to find me a guest. Rabbi, I go with students, with young people. Get me a student or a young person to come to my Seder of Pesach. There's just two conditions. I said, what are the conditions? He says, number one, he shouldn't have long hair. Shouldn't be a hippie. And number two, he should be able to understand my Chidushim, my Dvar Torah. So I said to this guy, hey Jason, whatever his name was, I said, people with short hair and who know Dvar Torah, they have a Seder to go to. I said, you know what it's all about? It's all about, the whole thing is about bringing someone in. I heard from one of the rabbis, Lazarus, from Houston, Texas. He said they have one of the biggest medical centers in the world there. A cardiology department, I think it's second to none. And a lot of people didn't come there, they had a special time. Somebody came there to the shul, and there he saw some weird-looking jeans, tattoos, earrings, mices, a guy in the shul, and he came privately. He was a very able person. He said, well, I think that's going too far. That's not the kind of Balshili you want. You know, the guy you want, he was someone davening with Kavona and some alert, my Machzis before. The Shliach told him 5 years ago, this guy had longer hair than this one. the one who you see davening, your role model, was actually even further along that cultural path. So you have to be able to see the beauty. The Rebbe taught us to see the beauty in every person, and I am envious I'm envious of colleagues in London who have the people who are a little bit, fit this description more than I do. I have guests, most of the time, or occasionally, or usually. But sometimes I say to myself, they're so enjoyable, which is wonderful. I also want to take somebody who otherwise wouldn't have, not so, because when you take someone as a guest, which is exactly who you like, it's still something big, by the way, because everybody, there's a certain sense that a man's home is his castle. He likes just to be there and doesn't like to have to be careful. So any guest you have is already a certain commitment. But still, you have a friend and you're able to talk and they understand the stories and they're on the same wavelength. That is beautiful. But when you take somebody in who's a little bit weird, you're taking them in. Why are you taking them in? Because they're Hashem's children. You're enhancing your relationship with Hashem by taking that person. I'm looking after them not because they think like me and speak like me, or the same income bracket as me, and the same religious standard as me, and they're careful and everything else. And therefore, it's a tremendous, very, very extra special mitzvah, admittedly, to have a person like that at the table. In my house that I was brought up in, I'm here in Chabad, my mother encouraged me very much. But she was born in New York, like 112 years ago, or whenever, and she didn't, any neighbor who was a little bit funny, something, she would encourage him to come to our house to travel. She used to say, I pray that I'm looking after Hashem's children, inviting them in, and He'll look after my children, and protect my children as a result. I heard it, I remember that this Shabbat, I stayed in the house, and that wasn't Orchid. It was a Lubavitcher couple. And I told the woman, I said, I just feel like I'm meeting with Avraham and Sarah from the Chumash. You cannot imagine the type of Achnos Zorah. So the woman told me, it's Friday, told me a certain thing that she needs, a certain Yeshua. And she says, I do it because I'm telling Hashem, we're in this together. I'm going to look after your people. And I need you to look after somebody who she needs, who she knew that needed something. So it's even self-serving on some level. It's not. It's an act of love, of Ahavas Yisrael, which incorporates within it a love of Hashem, because the fact that I'm showing this to the person, I'm showing also a love to Hashem. So therefore, you're right. On the other hand, one has to weigh up the situation of one's children. It's not the weird people only. Sometimes people come and they represent philosophies and lifestyles, and they insist on bringing it to the Shabbat table. So if it's just something, sometimes you can steer it. A student once asked, we had a lot of children, and the students were staying with our in their room. And at the Shabbat, the guy told me, aren't you scared to have someone like me in your house? An influence that I might have on your child. And so I basically said, I trust you. But in the back of my mind, he was right. I was scared. You're supposed to be scared. You're not scared, And I was also had in mind that my son that he was a roommate with was Yossi. I believe he was here recently. But they forgot again. Somewhere. All right. Right now in California, our oldest son, he's now 50 years old. So he was a boy. But I also wanted the children to learn, to experience that you're in a house where this is the norm. That we follow the Rebbe's words, not just as a theory in a book, but that, you have somebody like that in the house. So that's also part of the correct. On the other hand, there is a certain, what I would say today is that there are certain type of people which might have, for yourself, and if your spouse is on the same page with you, it's not worth Shalom Bayit's problem. You have to suffer and win. But if the couple themselves are ready for it, then I'm all the way, as long as there's no danger, physical or spiritual, direct danger to the couple. When there are children involved, or sometimes it's not children, it's a different guest that's at the table, who you're working on. I mean, I have many discussions with my wife, including just a few weeks ago we had such a case, where I believe that having a lot of different weird kind of people, but different types of weirdness each one has, they somehow or another counterbalance each other. Somebody once said, how can your stomach cope with what you eat at the Seder? I said, look, if you eat everything there, somehow there's a balance of terror between the matzah and the salt water and the egg with the lettuce and the mud. All these things come together, and if you have everything in the right proportions, it's okay. Except when it's not. So that's one way to think of it. But if it has an effect on the children, when I advise people today, that if there's a serious danger, and the danger is not when you take someone weird in your house, that's a mitzvah, because your child is learning what it means a yid. Nobody is concerned about the three kedoshim of today, if they were tall or short or what. They were Yiddish and Neshamas. How do we know about it? So many different things happen to so many different people, but it's us. So the person should learn, this is us. If there's a danger, then what I try to do, sometimes it's my responsibility to find a suitable place for that person. I remember there was once somebody who used to come to Lubavitch. He was like a real weirdo. But it wasn't the weirdness that bothered. He used to come and say, I need a place overnight. And then he'd be there for a month. He wouldn't leave until he somehow needed to get the initiative to get him out of there. You had to do something to get him out. He didn't just leave. And on the other hand, how could he send the guy onto the street? So one time he came to me. I was actually learning with a student from the University of Cardiff. I remember where I was learning with him, what we were doing. And he came and he said, I need a place for one night. I said, is it really just one night? Promise you it's one night. So I said, here's 10 pounds. Let me take out $100 probably. I mean, this is 40 years ago. I said, go to the Kadima Hotel overnight. I said, I'm putting you up in the hotel overnight. And he went. I don't know if he got somebody else to sponsor the next night, but he couldn't come and tell me I need another night. He said, I'm here for one night trying to sell something. And I actually got a benefit from it, because 3 days later I got a check in the post from the guy I was running with. And over the years, he became a major supporter. He said, next time somebody comes looking for a place to stay, let me pay for his hotel. He understood the whole situation. The guy was learning, he was like a student, an older guy in his 20s. And he understood that there was a certain danger. So you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. Whatever happens, I'm responsible for the guy. I'm not going to tell the guy, sorry friend, no place to go. That I wouldn't do. But what I would do is I would say, you know what? I call up a friend, I call colleagues, and I say, look, I've got so-and-so in my house now, and if this one of them comes, and we're working so hard on this person is right now in a crossroads about who they're going to marry, to be Jewish or not, something like that. And I'm working with the person, and they're here for Shabbos. I cannot afford the energy. I don't mind it in terms, but sometimes the meal is a vehicle to be able to steer a person or to help them in a certain direction. So the answer would be, it depends really on the very specific situation, but the bottom line is that I am responsible to find a solution to that person. Long-term solution, send them to the right agency or whatever it happens to be. Anyway, that's the answer to question number one. Anybody have any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The questions have to be connected to Gimel Thomas.
Yeah, I'll connect it to Gimel Thomas.
How did the last one connect?
The question is, how did that question connect to Gimel Talmud? I'll tell you how. If you want to have instructions to the Rebbe, there are really three things that you have to have. I told you the first one before, which is to learn the Torah. I plan to say this anyway, the next two. And if you really want to have a connection with the Rebbe, without Torah, the Rebbe told me the Hige Hiskashus, the main Hiskashus is through Torah. The second way of Hiskashus is to have a mashpia, to have a spiritual mentor with whom you can discuss your spiritual progress. A person you can call up once a week, or at least once in 2 weeks, or at least once in 3 weeks, a minimum of once in 4 weeks. That's the absolute minimum, to touch base, see what they say, everything's all good, or I have problems, whatever it happens to be. Just before I came here tonight, a girl, a student of our school, she had sent me an email. I know you're abroad, Rabbi Lou. I have an urgent thing to discuss with you. Is there any way I can talk to you? And I'm not going to be back till Friday, just before Shabbos, and I have already things here that are on Friday. Extremely delicate things this coming Friday. So I emailed her back. I said, look, here's my number. If you call me between this and this time, then that's okay. And she calls, and it turns out it's a question, it's a kid, a teenage kid, it's a high school kid. It has to do with changing the mashpia. I'm going into the details. That the mashpia thought that she herself is not appropriate for this particular girl, but the girl really likes that mashpia. So I said, look, I can't hear it. I'm running away. Your question is so beautiful. It's so important. Send it to me an email. I'm going to think about it over the next couple of days. And then after Shabbos, we're going to talk about it. And she did. She already sent me an email. This is all when I was benching, when I was leaving the house. That's why I was a few minutes late. Because I sent her an email back, validating her question and her dilemma, and saying, she's from the minority, I think. I suspect that most girls don't have a mashpia, because I know from other emails, and I tell, even when they write to me, I talk, look, as a Rav, as a Machanik, you need a female mashpia to call. And basically what they say, so a girl just came to me this, in the last couple of weeks, she says, I don't have a person who I can trust him to be confidential. He said, I'm not from the Frum family, and the Frum society, everyone is so friendly, everyone tells everything out to everybody else. It's just an important thing. When somebody comes to you with a thing, the very first thing is confidentiality and non-judgmental. So The second thing is to get yourself a mashpia who has the following three qualities. Number one, you can look up to them. Number two, they can keep confidentiality. And number three, they're non-judgmental. They're not going to say, oh, you have such a problem, you're not for me anymore. They'll say, that's an interesting thing, let's try to work it out together. Whatever they want to say, that type of a person. And you can find a person, and with that kind of a right person, you can access your Yechidah Shabbat. The Rebbe called it about Kosher Nafesh. I believe that the Rebbe was saying, one of the only things the Rebbe said about Kosher Nafesh. And I believe the Derech Efsher that is the key to his kashrus after Gimel Tammuz, one of the keys. And people who say, I just don't feel it, and I have gadui, and I wish I had this, and I wish I would do that. It's like the speculation, the sentimentalism. I say, you want to make an omelet without using an egg. You want to feel the Rebbe, so you do what the Rebbe said, learn, have a mashpia, and the third thing is to do miftzoi, to have another person go out. In fact, that possibly, the Rebbe summed up a Kosher Nafesh also about Amos is over the opposite of. And it's possible that is, you can access a deeper level of Rebbe through a relationship with a Jew that's not of the type that I would normally choose because he's on my wavelength than any other way of discussion. So Gimel Tammuz is a time to rededicate ourselves, A, learning Chassidus, especially to the Rebbe's story. B, mashpia, and C, working with other Jews. Going out on Miftzoi is one way, and having them in your house is even a much deeper way. There are plenty of people go out on Miftzoi, but it wouldn't be so quick to let them over the threat. We have a son, he's a rabbi, convention in a very largest shul in Europe. Got 3,000 members. And he told me, it's the first Pesach he was there. He was one of the members. He invites for Pesach. At least one of sometimes they have a Seder just for family, but at least one of the Sidorim, there'll be 20, 30 people at the Seder. And one of the people told him at the Seder at 3 in the morning, I wouldn't have had that guts. Anyway, they did. And the Balabah said to him, I'm living in this community for 18 years. It's the first time I ever stepped over the threshold of a rabbi's house. And he was just moved by that. Sometimes having someone, some people are ready to give the guidance, but keep you distant. So this is, and what the Rebbe asked, he told Rabbi Katz, from Pretoria, famous story. I don't know from I know from Katz's son. I sent her, Mrs. Tauber, to Katz. She asked the only people who have such stories. The Rebbe asked him, do me a personal favor. He said, sure. But I never said. Do something for the prisoners in South Africa, the Shmuel Light Hanukkah. But the Rebbe called it a personal favor. You want to do a personal favor to the Rebbe, that's the connection. Yes, sir.
I don't want to take it off. Is Rabbi Lu in favor of these recent biographies that came out? Is Rabbi Lu in favor of them?
I say I haven't gotten around to read them. I have them. These people gave it to me. And what I say is that it tells you more about the author than about the Rebbe. Every one of those books is a way to access. It's nothing wrong with it. If that's what you're into, I can think of worse books to read. But if you want to know what the Rebbe is, there's only one way. Or say 3 ways. Learn Chassidus, having mashpia, and be Mekar Jews. That's the only way you can really sense it. Bodek u'menusat. And I tell you this from experience. If you want to know the Rebbe, you'll know the Rebbe from his Torah, not from any of these books. Yeah, you might know different things about him. So you know that the Rebbe, how many days was he absent when he was in the university here? I didn't read it, but somebody told me that it has such a, this, has that detail. It's beautiful. I'm interested in anything to do with the Rebbe. I'll tell you. Very much I could tell you 100 stories about things which I, over the years. And sometimes direct connection with the Rebbe. The Rebbe, it's a different thing, different jobs. The sister-in-law, the Rebbe's sister-in-law who lived in England. How, different, but that, if you want to access Rebbe, then that's a diversion. Access Rebbe, sit down and learn and mind this. Somebody must be shluchim. They deal with purely about promoting a book, so they will bring feet into the Chabad house. Just like if you go out, you get a speaker, you get the, by the way, tonight in London, 2 hours ago, Joseph Kalushkin was actually there on a special event. The Hashgacha Gibel Talmud night, but he was invited by an evening which was organized by a person called Harper Publishers. They organized it, and they got the Israeli ambassador, Daniel Tao, whose wife is a second cousin of my wife, by the way, and Daniel Tao is interviewing Kalushkin and asking questions, and my son-in-law met Tao at a tefillah for the three, now that we know that conversion, when these 3 boys that were kidnapped, and he said, I've read half the book and I'm fascinated with it. Every word, it's good, it's going to bring people in. But it's not, you don't need it, and I don't need it in order to have a kashrus, nor do the people who are interested. The Havana, the Rosh Tanya, they'll learn some of the Sikhs, to find out about their own neshama. So it's a means to an end. But my one-liner is, it tells you more about the author than about the Rebbe. Loud and clear, hard.
Hi, does Rav Lu have, or maybe a tour by the Rebbe, about that can help explain the tragedy that Am Yisrael faced today with the slaying of 3 boys? Is there any words of advice that maybe Rav Lu has, or that Rebbe gives in times of distress like this?
He wants to know if Rabbi Lu has advice via the Rebbe to explain the tragedy that happened today.
My hesitation is only in searching back. I thought of that very question. Just before I came here, I saw a couple of emails which had the information. Very shocked by it. In 1956, some terrorists, some Arabs terrorists, infiltrated through some groves outside. Chabad was actually an Arab village. It was clear, but it was mixed together with other places. It took years and decades until it was established and until it actually was built up. And some terrorists infiltrated in an evening, and there was Talmidim in the Sefer of Malacha, there's a vocational school there. And these Rishoyim, Yimach Shemon, started shooting. I think that they were in the middle of Shemona Esrei, by the way. And someone turned out the lights, and they shot around, but by the time it all ended, and then he ran away. But by that time, 5 Talmidim were murdered. And it became a turning point, because everyone in the Kfar, people were, the Kfar at that time was virtually 100% Jews who had made Aliyah from the Soviet Union. They had enough problems in their life before they came. It was very difficult for Gashmias. And the government had even more bureaucracy than today. Even when they got grants, it took years to pay, and it was only partial, and it was only loans, all different types of things. And there were many people that really wanted to move. The first thing that Rebbe did was, the first few days, he did not say. And he said that the first thing is when a tragedy strikes, the first thing of a Jew is like Yibam Aharon. Aaron was silent. Because if I have a ready-made answer to explain it, why do you have a ready-made answer? It almost sounds like you're expecting it. When do you give it an answer? There's no one. That's A. B, even when the Rebbe did write, and he wrote powerful, powerful letters, some of which were written to all the people in the Quran. He said that by building, you will find comfort, and this is an opportunity. And he said in Kabbalah, it says after Gevurah comes Tiferes, which means after a tragedy comes greater blessing. Now is not the time to go, now is the time to build. Privately, he wrote to Chassidim how to encourage people without telling them that he's saying it. Privately, he wrote to, I just read a letter, I read every day. I undertook 20 years ago, Gimel Thomas, to read every day 3 letters, 3 pages of letters of the Rebbe. I'm now third time around, 13 trials. And a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months, was either at the end of the 12th or in the 13th volume, I think it is, was a letter to Zalman Shazar. Subsequently became the president of Israel 7 years later. At that time, this was 1956. And the Rebbe wrote him a real passionate, hard-hitting letter about getting the government departments to help it. Because basically, the Rebbe didn't say this, but it's almost like you can feel I'm doing my part. This was a major experiment. A major success in the whole country. And he says, get the money and get it without loans, without, appreciate it. At the end of the letter, the Rebbe says, you might ask, why is Chabad better than anywhere else? He writes a few reasons that these Jews all survived with their Jewish identity and Jewish commitment intact from decades under the Soviet Union. But he also writes, I think it's very relevant to Gimel Tammuz, it's directly relevant. The Rebbe writes there, he says, they acted out of beautiful faith. And he made faith in him. He says, how do I know that? Because he writes, the Rubam Kekulam Eina Makirim Oishi. Most of them never met me. Very themselves. And they stayed here in the Kvar. And he says, many of them have relatives and good friends who settled in other countries and are relatively successful in their lives, and they're staying there. So for that reason itself, you should be giving them special help. And I thought when I read this letter, it's the first time around, but I didn't notice it before. This year, when I saw it a few weeks ago, this is a paradigm of Gimel Tammuz. The Rebbe is talking to somebody about the Lubavitcher people who don't know him, didn't meet him. And they're acting on faith, and they're acting out of love, and they're doing what's right, even though it's not always easy. And there are other people who they can look at, they're somewhere else, and and they don't feel they're missing anything. They're happy with their conscious to them. And what's the Rebbe doing? He's behind the scenes telling someone, they don't have to know it, but you get that doctrine. He's drawing down blessings for every one of these people. So, coming back to the question. Number 1, silence. Number 2, the number 3, the most important thing is not an explanation of why, but what it means to us. In Mumbai, a few years ago, 6 precious, beautiful Jews were killed. Shliach and Shlucha and 4 other Chayei. Now I'm going to tell you something, I don't know if anybody in this room knows it. You have the shluchim, you have our form. One of these shluchim, one of his mukurabim in his Chabad house, is a top-notch fertility expert, one of the top in the United States. And he quietly made an offer right after that. He says, I will give free of charge fertility treatment to create 6 Jews, 6 shluchim. 6 shluchim who don't have children, to replace those 6 people. That's a response. That's an explanation. An explanation to this. A person says, I was planning my life ahead. I thought I'd get married when I'm 30, 31, 32, when I settled a bit. And then I'll have 4 kids. I tell that person, you know what, aim to get married at 27. And aim to have 6 or 7 kids. I'm going to replace them. Or at least one more than you will go with that. That's what I would consider response. As far as the government is concerned, I just hope that they do something which will be enough of a deterrent, like taking out the people who actually perpetrated, not waiting 5 years, but they've done this in the past. You know, the famous Oslo, the famous Munich people, they took them out one by one. Killed them one by one, but it took years. You know, to get to, that's if I was going to be government. That's something I have no power with. I have a power when we were married, we had as many children as we could. And it wasn't a burden, it wasn't a difficulty. He said, that's what I can do. Each person has to say, I can undertake an extra mitzvah. I can undertake an extra healing. I can undertake something which I had it on my plans, I was going to do it 5 years ago, I'll do it now. These are the types of things, but explain it, there's a very, very famous, as far as I'm concerned, it's the most moving explanation about the Holocaust. A Sikh of the Rebbe, Pashtus Hayechi, talks in the knowledge. Basically, the Rebbe said there's no explanation. And don't try to, he said that the previous Rebbe said, don't try to justify what God did. You can't. Was it right? Of course, the Eibush did it. It had to be right. And you'll find that when Mashiach comes, you'll understand it. Don't say you understand that which is not understandable. But on the other hand, and the Rebbe wrote to many young people after the Holocaust, you look in the letters, he says, now that we lost so many people, everyone has to live for more, that your position is more important. That's how the Rebbe built up the whole of Yiddishkeit after the Holocaust. Okay? By doing more, by building. It's all, the main thing is you have to respond in a positive way by building. Make it bigger. More Yid. More from a Yid. More committed.
Rabbi Klatsky, after he was killed by the Peshik of the butcher, we were going to pass exactly what you said. I'll be able to do more mitzvahs. I turned around the other side and said, also more the same. After a tragedy. Exactly what you said.
Yeah. Plus, having more children. Hilula, having, doing whatever. I was moved from all the different things. Like, obviously, I was in school. You're eating, I invited them all to send, I didn't give them a common script. We had an assembly, and they wrote anonymous letters. I kept them. You can look at it today, I cried. I very rarely look at it. Give them a chance to express the questions they had. Let them by. But this doctor, he said, I'm going to make 6 Jews be born. 6 shluchim, well, each one's going to go get some more to you. He can't do it himself. He's going to get somebody else. He's going to facilitate somebody else being born. Yes, so say.
Everyone gets all upset over children, a physical kidnapping.
Yeah.
And yet, the Rebbe was extremely stressed by all the spiritual kidnappings that took place. Should this be perhaps a stepping stone that there should be a sifus now throughout Eretz Yisrael for the spiritual waste that's going on?
Maybe. I think that at this moment, you have to, somebody can say, yeah, how can I, it's the same point, getting someone to be born, but not, my own gut feeling is similar, but it should be in a positive way. Unfortunately, there are many well-meaning people in Israel, many from people, and they see life as a battle between the so-called Torah camp and the other camp. What's the thing? We're Klal Yisrael War One. We want to get everyone to improve, move in a direction. Whatever camp they might be or not in, whoever they are, get them, it should be out of ahava. It shouldn't become an opportunity to bash this one and that one and to attribute different blames and stuff like that. To think of a way that a person should know that, God forbid, such a thing happens, there's going to be 3,000 more children born in Israel this year than were born in the previous 12 months. 1,000 to each one. Yeah.
We always speak about the Rebbe, emphasize, or people explaining the Rebbe's desire for an increase in Pnimius Atayr. But the Bochum in 770 learned 1/3 Pnimius Atayr and 2/3 Nigla. 1/3 Pnimius Atayr and 2/3 Nigla. So can you be Makasher to the Rebbe by learning Nigla as well?
The Rebbe told me personally, when I asked the Rebbe the Rebbe said, if you learn what I learned, you'll be Makusha to me. And I said, you said I should learn what you learned. In other words, what do you learn? The Rebbe said, I learned Nigla and Chassidus. He said Nigla first. He told me this in the thing. Ich learning Nigla and Chassidus.
So how do you connect it while you're learning the Gemara? When you're learning the Rebbe's Sichos, so that's the Rebbe himself. Should be the hair when you're learning Nigla?
First of all, I should say that if you're learning Samach Vav or Tafshin Gimel or Tanya or Likkutei Torah, it's also a Hizkashus to the Rebbe. Through the Rebbe you'll get all the other rebellion, but there is something very special about learning the Rebbe's actual Torah and understanding how the Rebbe explained it. And in England, one of the things I believe should be Rambam, which the Rebbe said to learn. It's called his Chav Shaloi. That was his institution. But besides that, even if you learn a Gemara and a Tosfos and a Kshos and things like that, I'm doing it because I want to come closer to the Rebbe. And through that come closer to my Neshama. Through that feel a closer connection to the Rebbe. And that's a vehicle for discussion, that in itself. The Rebbe very much wanted people to learn Nigla. And the Rebbe quotes, and more than I heard it personally from the Rebbe once, but it's like also saw just recently in a letter or in Sikha. In Tanya, in Perek Mem Aleph, it speaks about learning Torah Lishma. Near the end of Perek Mem Aleph. And it says there that a Beinoni should think about the Yichud Hashem that he creates with his learning once every hour. Like every hour, because that every hour the thing, the tzirufim, the different configurations of the Hashem's name change. The spiritual combinations of the letters of Hashem's name. But it doesn't say you should think about that the whole time. So the Rebbe says, why not? Because when you're learning Torah, your mind has to be engrossed in learning the Torah. At that moment, you're not thinking about nachas v'shalom, that's spiritual. What your conscious thought has to be on understanding. Understanding is already something which is ego. It's something, it's yourself. I'm trying to understand what it says in this piece of Gemara, or in this Rambam, or in this Ketov, or in this Yeshivas, or in this Shmaitz, or whatever the person happens to be learning at that moment. And that's where he's supposed to be. Once an hour, he has to keep reminding himself, why am I doing it all that other time? But when I'm doing it, I'm doing it. So learning Nigla, it's a word they say from the Rebbe Rashab. He said the Nesnagdim don't learn Chassidus because they say it's too high. He said if they would know how high Nigla is, they wouldn't learn that either. It's Torah Hashem.
Please, everyone can ask. I don't want to be the only. What does Rabbi Lou say to those that say that Gimel Thomas isn't our yard site? What does Rabbi Lou say to those?
Nobody said it to me. And if they said it, I would say it's not talking to me. Somebody said, he said, don't take the pussy. I said, the other has a puss, and I wanted to protect, I want to protect me. To me. You have Hashem hand. It's not, I thought it was beautiful. And I said I'll come, I replied to come. I said I was ready to come. That is say a word to something.
Rabbi Feldman has a question. Say it out loud so everyone can hear it.
I also have an answer for you, a Moira Diki Yechidus of the Rebbe.
What?
Yeah. You say it for what? For what? The question was a comment on the state of chinuch today. It's a very, very important point. In Kabbalah, there's a thing called Or and Keli. The Or is the spirit, the Keli is the instrument. For example, you have an idea. The idea is the Or, and the word you have to use in order to communicate. If I understand something, if I want to share it with you, I have to find words which you're going to understand, because you're the Keli that's going to be hearing that Or. If I have an emotion, I want to tell somebody I love them, or I'm afraid of them, or I'm annoyed with them, whatever it happens to be, it's an Or and it needs a Keli. Now there's an inverse proportionality, meaning the stronger the Or, it can shatter the Keli. The Or is too strong. It's like putting too hot water in a glass and it's mashed. You can't take the expansion. So a person can, you have a great idea, but you shoot it out with such passion that the person, it's not that they heard half of it, it washed over them. Or you love somebody, but you become so possessive or so intense that it smothers them, and then they're not, it doesn't send that message at all. On the other hand, if the Keli is too strong, you take into consideration the recipient too much, you're in danger of diluting the Or. So the state of chinuch today is that we have to find the right words to communicate the age-old eternity and infinity and godliness of Torah to people who are living in the world of today. The world of today is a world which is open, accessibility, even if a person is in the most halakhic, gated, spiritually gated community, and there's no access to anybody or anything, there's still plenty of infiltration. So what do you do in such a situation? My job is chinuch. The only answer is to inspire. If the child is inspired, and if he's acting out of love, then you don't have to control him. He do what he wants. That's what he or she wants. So we have to find, and you find the young people of today, on the one hand you can say there's a lot of problems, there are a lot of children who are alienated, who are go off to their Rahman al-Islam, even if they don't, it's because they're beautiful kids and they're a lot of Kabbalah soil. They're loyal, but the heart is not really 100% in it. They're 100% loyal, and they can do like that for 120 years. It's not because they are inspired. Our obligation as mechanchim, or as parents who are all mechanchim of their children, or adults in the community, our obligation is to be able to see the young people as potentially feeling this inspiration. With some of them, it'll come out in the open right away. With some of them, it will take time. With some of them, it'll be a partial success. Many of them, I heard from a boy, he's not a boy, he's a great grandfather, I think, but he was back then, he told me he was a boy. Came from an Orthodox family, his father was a professional, not from here, not from London. But I met him, we were traveling together, and he told me a very interesting thing about himself. He was like 21 years old or something, and he was at university, and he got questions, he had shilas, he had this and that, and he sort of like, and this was years ago. But at that time he was 20 years old, it's about 50 years ago. And what he did was, he became not so cool, maybe not cool at all. I don't know exactly where he went, but it was, as far as his family expectations, he was like a professional, not a Chabad kiddo, but the parent was extremely upset. Now then his father went and died. A couple of years later, he had machla or something. He died just from something else. So I met this person years, decades later. Very frum, very successful, beautiful family, children, grandchildren, maybe grandchildren, for some of them. And he said to me that his biggest regret in life is, he says, my father told me this and he told me that, and he died thinking that he wasted his breath. But there's not a single word he told me which didn't have its effect. But when I was 21, I wasn't ready to let it change me. I was busy with something else, but I was filing it. And when I was 25, 26, or whatever it was, then it became more meaningful to me. So you say the state of chinuch in this generation, A, the only way you can really operate is by inspiring. B, one has to make expectations clear. This doesn't mean compromising in any way. The child will accept the most, it will always know it's coming out of love, out of concern, out of sensitivity to where he's coming from. I heard from the Rebbe once in Yud Aleph Nissen Chavrein in Toshem and Beis, I think, that the two components of chinuch are to talk, to communicate with your child. A, and B, to be a role model. The child sees, they learn from what they see more than from what they hear. They see how you treat other people, how we practice our shalom bayis, or our kibbut aim, or how a person goes. You don't have to be a tzaddik, right? You get up in the morning and with Abba the Tanug and run off the daven. Baruch Hashem, I just can't wait to put on my tefillin. You might be groggy and tired, but at least the child knows that this is meaningful to me. It's important. It's something which I would never miss. And not because I'm angry about it or perplexed about it, or someone, you'll go to a shir, you'll go to mincha. To be able to see what's right and believe in it itself. Talking with the child. Very often today people do not find, we take our kids for granted. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful generation. I'm dealing with kids, I'm dealing with somebody, well, not from England, but somehow or another, she can get a punishment. But to replace the punishment would be to email me. Like it says, I'm wrong, you got Golos instead of heaven. She had to write to me. And she got involved with certain things. And so over a period of time, this person, Porsche, changed drastically over time, and then reached a stage when asked for a tickle for something really not good. When I wrote to her, that's the first thing I said, I admire your courage to write what you wrote. But you want a ticket for something she did herself, but worst of all was that she persuaded other people. And I said, well, she allowed them people didn't know anymore. You know what impressed me was that the person cared. So it taught me, and I always think to myself, the mechanech of this person would figure it's a lost case, throw her out, would just ignore her, put your energies into something more promising. And they would have been making a terrible mistake. This person would be a koyach for the toilet, not just for herself. It would be a big, that's what I believe anyway. It only happened a year ago, half a year, whatever it was. So the other person. But we have to believe the Rebbe, look what the Rebbe did. He inspired, he trusted, he empowered, put your energies into something. And Chas v'Chalila, I shouldn't have to say the word, the Rebbe wasn't, and that forbid, naive. There's nobody who knew people's weaknesses and limitations better than the Rebbe. Everyone who ever spoke with the Rebbe, or heard me look at the Sikhs, the Rebbe had an incredible understanding exactly of the generation. And he chose to inspire people by empowering them and entrusting them. In the Igros Kodesh of the Rebbe, there's about at least 5 or 10 different places where a mechanech asked about expelling a child. You know, ultimate exclusion. I'm not 100%, I'm 90% sure that if I remember correctly, that every letter there's a certain 2 things. Number 1, Yochid L'Rabim, L'Toyelos L'Rabim is Goyver. If there's a question about the individual or the community, the needs of and the rights of the community take precedence. In other words, you're entitled, if somebody is ruining things, destroying things, you're entitled to expel them. And every one of those letters, the next line that ever says, on the other hand, very often by giving the child a responsibility, you win them. In other words, you don't have to. In other words, the exact opposite, not just let them just sit around. Saying, trust them. That person is not a negative force in life.
The people who are in that position today following back those guidelines?
The what?
You feel that the people in that position today are following those words and those
The
guidelines?
people in that position, you're talking about thousands of people and dozens of positions. Depends who and when and what. Well, I've been in that situation more than most people, and sometimes I haven't, and sometimes I have. But, you know, I have to work it out when we're, you know, usually what I try to do, even if somebody had reached the end of the road, it's very difficult. I would be like behind the scenes trying to arrange an alternative for that. sometimes. And the other ones, which over the years, which I regret, there's certain people I maintain contact with, other Yemazeh. Because I don't know if I did, very hard to know, we did it right, you did it wrong, but it seemed like the Rebbe was always for, not chas v'sholem permissiveness, not God forbid to compromise, but on the person to somehow or another find the right way. And I once went up to the Rebbe with a little 1.5-year-old daughter to Kosher Bracha at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so here I'm coming with this kid. She just woke up. My wife was woken her up. We were there for a story or something. I'm coming by. Here's the Rebbe. He's pouring out with the becher. So I'm taking her there, and the Rebbe is holding out the becher, about to pour into her cup. So she thought the Rebbe was giving her the becher. So he lunged out, he put out a little 1-year-old hand, and started and went for the becher. You know what the Rebbe did? The whole thing happened in a second. So the Rebbe saw she's lunging for the becher. He moved the becher away, but she didn't notice that. The same second that moved the becher away, after hours, because the man was 87 years old. He took his 2 fingers and started to just play a little game in front of her eyes. She started looking in his eyes. And then the crisis was over. And I thought this is mamish a lesson in him. He didn't take away something. He gave us something. He played a game with us. Well, there's another one. The Rebbe was coming out of 770. It was Shavuos. A very warm day. There was hundreds of people out there. The Rebbe at that time with the Rebbetzin would over Shabbos and Yom Tov, they'd be in the library, which is next door. So they had to go down the pathway of 770, turn left for a few yards, and then go up the steps into the library. Meanwhile, there were 2 girls, 2 friends, they were outside the library at the bottom of the pathway on 2 sides, so you couldn't go in without going between the 2 of them. The Rebbe came out very quickly. Nobody was able to, they were scared. Everyone was scared to go tell the girl, get out of the way, because the Rebbe would see it, and no one knew what happened. So everyone was frozen in that spot. The Rebbe walked over, he whispered to one of the girls, and she walked across to the, and then the Rebbe went into the library. Then about 100 people descended on his head. And they said, what did the Rebbe say? And she said, he told me to say good Yom Tov to my friend. He didn't say get out of here, you shouldn't be here. And there was once another, a young girl, which was mamash, well on the bas mitzvah. She was by Kosher Bracha, she was singing with. And the Rebbe stopped in the middle and he explained to her that she should clap hands. She clapped the hand. Or Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah, at the end of the Farbrengen would go on, the aftermath. The Farbrengen started about 9:30, the Rebbe was Farbrengen till about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. Then he went out for a half hour, an hour, while they removed all the chairs, all the tables. It's about 10,000 people packed into that. It's a little shul, really. Packed. It's impossible. Anyone who wasn't there to envisage how they squeezing. You couldn't get out. Forget about getting in. Somebody told me there were twice as many people outside as inside. The whole street was full. But at the end of the Farbrengen, I was there. And the Rebbe said the Rabbi should, so the Leishur from the Seder, this should be at the end of every Farbrengen. He would say, make a bracha achrona, when he gets Leishur bracha. So the Rabbi said, the Rebbe geheißen Leishur, as jetzt, the Mamachar bracha achrona. When I was on my Roy's game, he said, now we're going to, the Rebbe announced, set to announce, everyone should say bracha achrona, and everyone should go out. The Rebbe said, ich habe es nicht gesagt. The Rebbe said, I didn't say that. So he said, okay. He said in Yiddish. The Rebbe said, everyone should make a bracha achrona. And since we're now finished the Fabranian part, and we're going to have to go to the Kofas part, we have to prepare the shul, the Rebbe said everyone should go out. He said, he did it 2 or 3 times, and each time he tried to give a Haggadah. Finally, he said, the Rebbe said, should make a bracha achrona, and everyone should know that there's a kiddush prepared outside. And there's Rebbe went. He wasn't sending him out, so he'd make kiddush. So comes the chinuch. It's not a compromise to get a person to get them interested, involved in something. It's always easier. There's a favorite Rashi of mine is in Krishma, after Hashem HaKecha. So Rashi says, "Asay devorav me'ahava." Do Hashem's words out of love. You cannot compare someone who serves his master from love to someone who serves his master from fear. Someone who serves his master from fear, they'll reach a level, a tipping point, when he just won't be able to take it anymore and will leave it. Someone that does something out of love, he's looking to do it. You have to get a person that should be involved and they should want to do it. And the way to do that is by communication, not only on the Heilige Sache, just generally to show an interest, to genuinely feel the interest, to communicate, to talk, to feel, not to be intimidated if you don't get such an enthusiastic response right away, to believe that you're saying something, and eventually it'll bear its mark. Yes, Yosef.
Rabbi Lou, you've told us so far from your first Yechidus, and you connected it to Gil Thomas. Can you tell us from the next 19, please?
I'll tell you one of them. I told more than one already, but I'm going to tell a different one that I didn't tell. I saw a Ruach HaKodesh often, just with my own eyes. I'll tell you now, and I was a young person really. I was 34, under 35. It was Ishru Chag Sukkot, Tafshin Lameday, 1974. Nearly 40 years now. And for a certain reason, the first time I went Tishrei after, I mean, by the Rebbe for every year before that. But when I went on Shlichus, and the last Yechidus, okay, here's a second one, which is not what I was going to say, the night before we left for England, we were in Yechidus. Chavhei of Tafshin Chavhei. And the Rebbe said to me, Elul in Tishrei is as man mesugul to Talmud to Yugend. I was going to Elul and Tishrei are an auspicious time to work with youth. It's an important thing to realize, to remember. And so the first time I actually came in Tishrei was for Tzukis. I came with a son who was 5 years old on Gimel Tishrei. And we went into Yechidus. Simchas Torah was on a Wednesday. You know how incredibly pressurized that week was. The Sukkot, especially Shmini Atzeres, especially Simchas Torah by the Rebbe. Shabbos Bereshis was the most difficult Shabbos of the year. This is the night sandwich between the two. Thursday night, Yisru Chag. And there were about 150 people or 150 groups that were going into Yechidus that night. That meant it's going to be basically a whole night. And I went in, I thought I would have a Yechidus, I give it a settle. I asked a bracha for the mishpacha. I stood like a soldier, and I was ready to say Amen, whenever give a bracha and walk out. I came with my son. First of all, the Rebbe started for having my son about the Aleph Beit and about tzitzis and about different things. Told me to explain to my son what he's saying. Then the Rebbe mentioned a whole bunch of different things. Some were connected to my work. I was working with university students then. The girl student, to light the candle, make sure it's before the shkia, etc., etc. You know, that was also a separate thing. But I want to say, the one I want to say, suddenly the Rebbe says to me, have you heard from so-and-so lately? So-and-so was a macha, a mover and shaker, someone like, you know, not from Chassidim, not from Haredim, but from the regular Jewish community. But England is an organized Jewish community. I was a young person, I didn't have anything really to do, but it happened to be that I was on the airport a couple of weeks before. I met Rabbi Bernhardt from South Africa. He told me that he had lunch with that mover and shaker. He was like a YU kind of, he became later on a Lubavitcher. He was like that type of person. And he said this man criticized the Rebbe very strongly for his stance on Mi Yehudi, on who is a Jew. And he said he's wrong, and this and that. So the Rebbe telling me in Yechidus, the young little me, and says, he had lessons from Yemen, he said the name of the person. So I told the truth. I said I heard from him, that he's very strongly criticized the Rebbe's stance on Mi Yehudi. So the Rebbe says to me, you know why? Hat ihm angerät auf mir a Loshen Hore zu Gora Moitzi Shemra, als ich hab gerät wegen gegen berab. Somebody said to that person, against me, against the Rebbe, a Loshen Hore, or maybe even a Moitzi Shemra. You know the difference between a Loshen Hore and Moitzi Shemra. Loshen Hore is a negative thing about the person, which is true. You're not allowed to say true things, even if it's true, about a person. Or Moitzi Shema, which is a slander, a lie, maybe even a lie. Then the Rebbe said to me, Ich red nicht wegen Menschen, ich red wegen Shittas. When I speak, and I'm talking about, disagreeing with someone, I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about ideas. Never mentioned the name in the Mi Yehudi Sicha. So how could someone say that I mean, this is my own beer? How could someone say I attacked him if I don't speak about him? And so ever saying this, I'm standing there. I'm saying to myself, here's that man, greatest Talmud Chacham in the world, greatest tzaddik in the world, greatest organized, the Noshi Hador, the person who's built up, who has a totally Yishna. He's a Moitzi Lo'os Forum, he's Mikara, he gives inspiration. But at the end of the day, he's your best friend. This is all a split second. What I'm telling you now, I didn't think in 10 seconds or 30 seconds. It was all in 1/2 of 1 second. I said, this is my best friend in the world. The person who loves me more than anybody else. Forget about all the other miles. And somebody has such a bad view of him. And why I have no kesher with? When I get back to London, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make a contact with that guy. As I'm thinking, it's all split second. As I'm thinking it, the Rebbe said, it's not a good idea for you to go to him and tell him what I just told you. So I'm a little bit of a wise guy. So I said to myself, I'll get I'll get somebody else to go. I didn't say it, I thought it the next second. So the Rebbe said, since Kenini goes back not zweitens again. He said, not a good idea, you should ask somebody else to go. I thought I said nothing. And then he said, and then the Rebbe said, he says, how do I know what somebody told him in fact? It's just a bad question. So the Rebbe said, look, you're telling me now. Du hast wissen, so dort 613 Mitzvahs, du hast 613 Mitzvahs. Mi Yehudi is 80 of them. Mi Yehudi is one of those. If he won't work together with us at Kuban and Shabbat on the other, on Mi Yehudi, let's work with him on the other 612. And I saw that as a Haturach and that in Chinuch as well. You asked the question about Chinuch. You have to look for the key to the person. It's the same in shalom bodies and business and relationships. At the end of the day, you build up on the area where people agree. You know, I don't know what to do, but I just kind of, living over here now, this is where the trip. Parent was very, very, Islam, really difficult to show you with a kid, and it's still, it's still something which could go either way. But he told me, he gave me a whole ideas about the different conversations and things, and I heard something beautiful from that kid in the course of the actual arguments. A sensitivity. So I said, you take that. You have something that not every teenager would give out. And compliment what I tend to say, you don't have to compromise your position, by the way, as a parent. That's your job, is to set boundaries. But there's a way to do it in a way that becomes communication, or cooperation, explaining, winning over the person. It's a process.
He became a Rebbe since young. He became Chabad.
That person?
Bernhardt.
Bernhardt? 100%. 100%. The Rebbe gave you a shekoyach to the shaliach. Not me. But the shaliach told me. I don't go into the details. The Rebbe told him some powerful word in Yechidus. But I'll tell you, he wrote to the Rebbe starting Chabad. So he wrote to the Rebbe and he said as follows. He showed me the letter. He stayed in my house in London on the way back to South Africa. Showed me the letter he wrote to the Rebbe. He said, he was himself a Baal Tshuva. Not was, he is. He's a Yeshua, he's a Refuah. So he said, my great-grandfather might have been Chabad, even though he was not Lubavitch. That started with that. However, basically, our family is not Lubavitch. And I want to ask the Rebbe if I can undertake Minhagei Chabad, that was number one. But he said there were certain aspects of Minhagei, of Nusach HaTfilah, and he wrote in English, but he wrote in Hebrew, Chavivos Orai Ma'od. That's how he explained it. They're very precious to me. And he gave an example of the psukim you say by Jules Haderech. People say you'll be on Yaakov al-Chadak or this kind of thing. And he wrote on the Rosh Chodesh bench. And then he wrote, is it also correct for me to impose this upon my wife? The Chumris of Chabad for Pesach, for example. Which are very big, more than anywhere. So the Rebbe wrote back, and what he said that his grandfather was maybe Chabad, not Lubavitch. So the Rebbe wrote that when it comes to Nusach and to Minhagim, Lubavitch and Chabad were all the same. Number one. When he said, I am essentially he wrote in the Yiddish word, I'm a Gevoriner, nicht a Gevoriner. I'm someone who became, not someone who was born. So the Rebbe wrote on the side, Lo Ha'ir, a reflective comment, that the Alter Rebbe had the greatest Hasidim, and every one of them was a Gevoriner. Balatanya, everyone was a Hasidim, was a Gevoriner.
He was too, the Balatanya was one too.
Yeah, okay. He talked about Hasidim. Then he wrote about the Nusach HaTfilah, about the Tfilas HaDerech and the Rosh Chodesh mentioned. The Rebbe said that both of these examples are not a hefsik tefillah, so you can still do them, meaning you're Nusach HaRi. Then when he said the Chumras of Pesach and things like that, can I impose it on my wife? So the Rebbe wrote 3 words. Lo imposed, lahatzia. In other words, suggest, don't impose, suggest. I forgot what you asked.
19 other Yechidus. Gimel Tammuz with the other 19 other Yechidus.
Ah. Yeah. I think that was another issue.
3 down, 16 to go.
It wasn't 19, it wasn't 19, it was more like 28. It'd be a long night, my friend.
3 down, 25 to go.
But I'm one of the guys that learned from Schneider's Gimel Tammuz.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can take it back to the oil now.
It sounds attractive. You think it's empty? I've been to the oil. Gimel Tammuz is, by the way, I've been to the oil at 9 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, 5 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and I was never there when I didn't have to wait. The shortest wait was about 5 in the morning. About 7 years ago, they were writing a book, so they called me from the office to England, and they said, would you let yourself be interviewed for this book? Unfortunately, anyway. So I said, I'm coming on Gimel, I'm arriving, I forgot where I was speaking somewhere, I'm arriving on Gimel, I'm going straight to the oil. So Al Shmuel said, I can get you into the fast track. You have to go to oil very quickly, right in. So I said, I prefer not the fast track. I prefer to be on the line. See it. Anyway, so they arranged, I met this author 2 days later. He taped a 3-hour conversation. His first question says, did you go to the oil at the Gimel Tammuz? I said, of course. What kind of question is that? So he says, what did you feel? So I said to him, I'm not the kind of a guy that feels. You know, I don't even do what I'm supposed to. But if I do it, the maximum I do is I do what I'm supposed to. I don't sit around and say, am I in the mood or not in the mood? I don't analyze myself for anything. Because you analyze yourself, then sometimes you're not in the mood. You're not going to do it. I said, but this year, I had a real emotion when I went to the oil. He says, what was the emotion? I said, Simcha G'dol. He said, why? I said, because I looked up the road and down the road. The men and the women. I was one of the only people there with a white beard. It's a young crowd. It's Poshek, 13 years after Gimel Tammuz. It's all young people. It's Poshek, girls, teenagers. Thousands. You're talking about, the police deal with thousands and thousands. You go there, you believe Gimel Tammuz will stop. Many times. So he said, where are all the old people? I said, they're there, but you don't know what Batul B'Shisha means. He said, it's a young crowd. I said, it's young people. He said, yeah, but what's going to happen 13 years from now? So I said, 13 years ago, you said that's going to happen now, and you were wrong. So have a little bit of humility, and 13 years from now, it will also be not like you think. I told this story, by the way, to my class, 17-year-olds, just 2 weeks, and they laughed, they understood it. You have an oilim today who's red hot. The older chassidim, I was in Yechidus, I think about 28, 29 trying. The chassidim went in, and I had about 150 letters from the Rebbe, and Tzedlach probably about 500 more. And so talk when he stopped me, whatever it was, and spoke. I'm telling you, the people who saw the Rebbe, who did this, obviously you have something, it's a big acharayis, and it's a big responsibility, but we can mechanize this kashrus of the young generation today is far deeper than it was 30 years ago. And I've asked this to many older chassidim. I'm just a regular American guy, a wild guy, basically. But I asked a lot of chassidim people, and I never heard anyone who challenged me on it. Except one guy once. He wasn't a old chassidim. He was a young guy. But he said, how do you say it's a good generation? They got internet, they got this. The guy was cursing me out to say it. And I said, you don't understand today's generation. Yesh, that's a different thing. That's anywhere, anything. But basically, there's a hiskashus. The shlichus today. I was just now brought out to a Kinnis HaShmuchim in Shanghai. but not we had a Shabbaton in Hong Kong, but a 3-day kinnus, a retreat for shluchim and their wives and their children. Just under about 20 families. From Bangalore, Singapore, from Cambodia, from Vietnam, from Shanghai, from EU, I never heard of EU, from Pudong, from sugar places. We never had shluchim went to places like that 30 years ago. They went to a place where there was a kid that might not have been from, but there was Jews there. And then you have in America or in Canada, a guy in Spokane, Washington. I asked him, how do you get to Spokane? He called me up once, one of the mentor programs. I said, find a place like that. And he told me it was unbelievable. He never saw it. What? But
Between nowhere and nowhere, he said.
yeah, but the Rebbe told us that that's not known. There's a yid. That in the Maimah, V'ata Tatzava, the Rebbe calls it Pinani Dachas. He says you cannot enjoy the Gilui Elikus that you feel, if you feel it, even if you feel it, if there's a Pinani Dachas where there's no Gilui Elikus. I think these guys feel it, they live it. And then I have another guy about Tshuva. You cannot imagine, I don't want to say how far he was. He was sitting once in a place he should have been in. He told me later on, and somebody said, you know what today is? It's one of his friends, they're sitting together. And it's like a trade for restaurant. And he said, what? They said, it's Yom Kippur. Oh, and because of that, it's not out of rebelliousness, out of a joke. He did something even worse. And this person's got Einikwa. We're going to shlichus in places with Yiddish Shemayim, I don't know if that shaykhs to our machshavos are. It's about 2 or 2nd, 3rd generations going to places which were unheard of. Well, some of the kids that, I'm in a school, and you can imagine there's plenty of things that we have to do. The girls, the boys, with everything else, different, levels. But essentially, you can think that the good kids, our best teachers today are ex-Talmidim. Yeah. That's unbelievable. We go to Russia. I mean, these kind of places was unheard of. So the guy says, what's going to be like in 20 years? You go to the Kinnas HaShluchim, and they say everyone who went out in Shlichus in the 1940s stand up. And a couple of alta 90-year-olds, they get up. In the 1950s, 5, 6, 7, 10 people maybe get up. 1960s, 30, 40 people. There's a hall with 3,000 shluchim there. 70s, maybe 150 get up. The 80s, 200 get up. Up 90s till 1994, till Gimel Tammuz. Then they will sit down. They say, whoever went out and sins Gimel Tammuz, and 2/3 of the hall stands up. And make the roll call. You see it. And the Kinnas HaShluchim every year. And every year the percentage becomes different. I told my son, he's went to a lot of places now. He's 50 years old. I told him tonight, I said, you should know you're from the 5% oldest shluchim in the world. Right. He said, I just spoke in Shalom Duchnu. He's older than me. I said, he's from the 4%. It's a young crowd. One time the Israeli consulate came to HaKofis, and the Rebbe was going like this. He said, look at my army. He says, they're all young. Totally, he says, he has he said, I'll put out the Yidden though. He showed him that the few old guys sitting there on the side by their coffee. But the whole thing was a black beard. He goes, go to the oil tonight, tomorrow, anytime you want to go, and see the
Balance.
pardon? The balance. Thousands. Elamai is problem. That's part of the deal. You know, Hazagashmi, you know, there's challenges in chinuch and in relationships and everything in the world. But essentially, it's an ikar ikarim is that we need Mashiach. You want to see the Rebbe again. And it'll happen. You see, the pieces are falling into place. If somebody would tell me, when I went to Russia in 1981 when Brezhnev was there, do you know how pressured he was? I could sit a whole night and tell him just about that. And a secret mission, personally, which I got from the Rebbe. And the only reason I could say I have it, I was told him secret. I asked an elder Chazan 20 years later, he's asking him what time if I could remember that. And look what, you know, and someone would tell me there, when I saw what happened in Russia, 1981, that in 2014, Tosh and $9, you can be this and that, the guy gives all different things in different countries. I say that's Mashiach, that's the definition of Mashiach. So we know it's not, because it says in the mind that that's opinion that. But it's certainly, you can see it's happening. And nobody's going to give up. Not one shaliach left after Gimel Tammuz, since Gimel Tammuz, because of Gimel Tammuz. Not one person. And thousands went out of Shlich, thousands to Pshuka, in year. And there's a kollel with about 300 guys just looking for places. When I was a bacher, this didn't exist. And they were almost Kivayol, the Rebbe was looking for people to go. Yes.
If you have a dream about the Rebbe, what does that mean?
It means you're a lucky guy. I know people with fantastic dreams.
Someone just said the Shabbos about Rabbi Gazinski.
What about him?
He had a really long dream.
There's a saying, not by Jews, but generally they say, if you want your dreams to come true, you gotta wake up.
Well, they gave him a choice. The Rebbe sent him back down. He ended his
Oh,
dream.
that one, yes, Yossi Gazinski, yes, that I know. The Rebbe said, he told the business from my land. Yeah. I just met him. His son, his daughter just got married to my Mechutman's son, and we were here for an Enikel's wedding, so I went to that house on Wednesday, about 2-3 weeks ago. He was dancing like, and then he tells the story. Yeah. Like Mamash about Shem's Kemaisa. I was actually in Berlin when he had the heart attack. He had a cousin there. His wife's, Tachtel there. I was in Berlin, and they just got the information that it was Rahman al-Islam. It looked like hot.
On the 13th, they said on the 13th try, they revived him. Because he was a friend of, the doctor was his friend. They tried to revive him 12 times. On the 13th time, they got a pulse.
We have another marriage. Let me just have a piece of challah.